Hey folks, how's it going? Welcome back once again to the Vince City podcast. We're all doing okay, keeping safe, enjoying the slight easing of lockdown restrictions, enjoying the beer gardens coming back, getting a pint. I'm coming back today with a podcast that's a little bit different to previous ones. It's a compilation, similar to the interview bootleg that came out last week. These are 4 conversations recorded over lockdown over the last 6 or 7 weeks or so with various industry professionals. We've got Sam McGill from Retro Video Club kind of covering the band sector. We have Bob Munro, who's guitar tech for Blossoms, the Amazons and a lot of other wonderful bands, covering live and touring. We have Chrissy Loomes from DF Concerts, who's the booker for King Tuts, to come on and speak about how it's affected booking and shows. And last but not least, we've got Dargie, who is a freelance music journalist and other journalist, and is coming on just to talk about how it's affected the kind of music blogging and music journalism side of the industry. All these conversations rotate around discussing how the COVID-19 pandemic has gone on to affect the industry at large, and I thought with the announcement this week it'd be a good time to kind of stick it out. It's worth mentioning as well that in the description I've placed time codes as well as the dates when these conversations record, because it does range over quite a lot of periods, so it'll kind of give you an idea of just, where our headspaces were. Because if I imagine if you listen to this, it might sound a wee bit strange. Because some of these conversations are about 6-7 weeks old, but hopefully it'll also give you a nice bit of an idea of how things developed and how things progressed over the course. A wee bit of a history document. I had a real joy recording these conversations with 4 wonderful individuals, so I really hope you enjoy. And yeah, stay safe. There'll be a couple more slightly different podcasts coming soon. Hello Sam McGill, how are you?
I'm good, thanks Alex, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. I realised I don't think I actually asked how you were doing when we first kind of came on the Zoom.
I'm not too bad. How are you? You're alright?
Yeah, can't complain. What have you been up to so far? Well, we're talking at like 11:30, so kind of start of the day, but you've been up to much in the morning?
Not really, not a great deal. Had some coffee, a bowl of cereal. It's as exciting as it gets.
You've been sticking to a routine though, haven't you? You're not like kind of getting up.
I've been trying to. It's hard if you don't have anything to get up for to wake up, but then I don't want to knock that sleeping routine too far off, which a lot of people seem to be doing. So
what, like staying up quite late and getting up late?
Yeah,
I'm bad for it. I mean, I wasn't bad last night because I knew I had to get up for this, but I've been like 4 or 5 in the morning.
Get up for this 11:30 start.
Yeah, I got up at 9:30. I feel like that's an acceptable time to get up, is it not? That's kind of.
Yeah.
But nah. What have you been occupying your time with then? What's a day looking like at the minute? How are you feeling it?
It depends on the day. So I'm trying to exercise every day that I'm allowed, as many times as I want now, apparently.
You're laughing.
Which is exciting.
You're the one person who's jumping for joy with that announcement.
I seen a thing and it was like, this is the first time Scottish people are going to exercise more than once a day ever.
It's been busy though, like when you go out and stuff and like going into the parks and all that.
No, you can notice a lot more people are like taking advantage of it, of having more time on their hands, and the fact they can't go anywhere else really. But I've been trying to get outside every day, been running, trying to get that back because I kind of lost it a bit.
What you used to run?
Like last year, I done a Tough Mudder thing.
What's a Tough Mudder thing?
So that's like that assault course. It's like a 10-mile assault course. And it's got like ice baths and all that you have to like go in.
That doesn't sound very nice.
It was really fun. Roped Rory Barnes into doing it the day before it happened.
Wait, Rory did it?
Yes, because it was me, Jennifer, Becky, and then Jennifer's brother couldn't do it. He had to pull out. So took Rory Barnes. We were out drinking, and I was like, "Oh, we're doing this thing in like 2 days. There's a space, you should do it." And he was
wait, so you'd all been training for
it? To be fair, I was the only one.
Nah, I had this idea of you'd all been like training really hard for it, and you rope Rory in like the day before, and poor boys get to try and.
But he did well. It was fun. So last year I'd kind of done stuff for that and built it up a bit, and then stopped doing anything really. And then now that I've had more time, trying to get out again. Other than that, been trying to like write stuff with Liam. Which is weird because usually that's something that we would do together here.
Yeah. What you doing over a webcam?
So yeah, just like this, and then screen sharing like the recording software, and then sending ideas back and forth and stuff like that.
How does that work though? Because I imagine songwriting's kind of like you would assume it's a process that you both have to be in the room for. Like you assume it would work better together, or
usually like Liam will come here with a pretty like full idea of what he has, and then I'm usually the one that will put it into the computer. Like, he'll play or whatever, but I'll record. So I guess it's different in the sense that we're just separate. And like, we've tried a couple of ways, to be fair. Like, the first one we done, he was kind of on the other side directing, and I just played every part. But then as it's went on, like, you've had more time, so I've been trying to like come up with some stuff, like just my own ideas, and send them back and forth, and vice versa. So it's kind of like changed it a little bit.
Have you ever tried your hand at lyrics, or are you purely a guitar man?
Nah, no lyrics. No, not at all. I don't have much to say. It's not a good way to sell yourself at the start of a podcast, but.
Nah. How do you program it all onto the computer and kind of demo the thing?
Yeah, so we just build it up. We actually write like straight into the recording software.
What's it, just like program drums and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, program drums, and then just like really quick. We're not too picky about how it actually sounds, as long as it builds up an idea of like roughly what it would sound like if we all played it together or recorded it.
Like, so you can kind of take it into the studio as like a blueprint, kind of like a rough
totally.
sketch of it. Yeah,
that's what we've done the last few times. We've literally just taken the demo session and had that on the screen, and then went through each part and like kind of redone it, done it better, made the changes, stuff like that.
What sort of stuff's getting changed when you're in there working on it?
I guess sometimes like so I was doing this recently actually with the time, looking back at like the older demos of the songs that are now out.
What?
So like I've got like 3am and like Night In.
I'd be interested to hear the Night In demo, because I presume all those strings and stuff probably got added in the studio, did they?
Yeah, exactly. So it was funny though, because we had the thought for those strings was still there in the demo, but we just didn't have the stuff to put it in. So you're kind of trying to like replicate with guitars and stuff all this like massive string noises.
I imagine that's quite a task.
Replicate more melody wise than like the sound of, obviously, but stuff like that. And then like the actual melody at the end of Night In was like completely different in the demo. Sometimes like the form of it. So I know with 3am, like the intro was like twice as long in the demo we recorded, and then that whole bit we're just like, doesn't need to be there, take it out type thing. Just stuff like that you might not necessarily think of when you're like just putting ideas down, but then when it comes to actually like forming it properly to play or put out, then you think a bit more about this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I guess an intro's not really going to work for, like, I don't want to say the Spotify generation, but I don't know if Spotify are too keen on big long instrumental gaps at the start of a song, are they?
Yeah, I know what you mean. You need to think about that stuff a bit, I guess.
Is that not a wee bit frustrating?
Kind of. Don't know. Try not to think about it too much, but then I'm part of that. Do you know, like, I listen to that kind of music, so then it's almost instinctively I feel how long it should be to do this and that.
But you're quite a big playlist guy, you know. You kind of like you're part.
I like playlists, yeah. I like making my own playlists.
Have you done any in lockdown? Because I remember last time, what was the one you were doing last time? Was it like Cabin in the Woods or something?
So I did a little Cabin in the Woods acoustic-y one. We started a band one, but that's only like 2 songs each a week.
Oh, I've seen that, because who was it put in Between City Lights?
That was me.
Was it Rory turned you on at them? Or did I send you them? Who was it?
Rory did.
Oh, stealing the folk I'm recommended.
It's a good tune.
It is a good tune. It's a good EP. That's probably...
I've not listened to the full thing yet. I only got sent it like 2 days ago.
What was the one you stuck in? Styrofoam?
Styrofoam, yeah.
It is a good tune. It's very guitar driven. It is kind of a bit... It's not retro, but when that guitar at the start could be like a...
No, it's cool.
Guitar.
So I put them in my last one. But it's a funny one, that, because usually like a playlist that you make is all stuff you like. But then when you got 3 other people's music tastes thrown in the mix, it can get a bit strange.
Have there been some questionable choices?
Mostly from Kieran, probably.
When you're doing a playlist, are you quite big into like having a flow with it? Like, so each track like kind of has a specific.
I shuffle it, to be fair. So I don't really think about what goes where. But then sometimes I will put it in. I'll go and edit the cue if there's like one I want. Because a lot of the time I find I don't have that many. I just keep adding to the same ones.
Wait, like, so do you ever a playlist is like never done? Is that what you kind of mean?
Yeah, like I never finish. Like I just keep adding to it. Any songs that I find that I like that fit into like this bracket, I'll just chuck it in there. So then they end up being like long.
Yeah, it's handy. I guess I'm not a massive playlist guy myself, but I get how handy it would be to just have like a playlist for like a certain mood or a certain activity depending on what you're doing.
One of my more recent ones, my sad songs playlist is.
Oh, you don't have a sad songs playlist. That's just asking for trouble.
I love sad songs. They're the best ones.
To be fair, most songs are pretty sad or melancholic. That's a big word I like using, melancholic.
Nice.
But they are though. Like, I mean, a lot of your stuff, if you think about it, most of them are probably a little bit sad.
Yeah. Night In's like this but then it's a bit hopeful, I guess. But it's like
It's quite
that to me is,
nostalgic.
like, the saddest one. That's what I like. I like the best. That's probably my favorite Retro Radio Club song, and that's probably why.
Is it?
Yeah.
I didn't know you had favourite songs. I thought they were like, I don't know.
Nah, I got favorite. Definitely.
It's weird to think it only came out, when was it? Like last year, a year ago?
Last year, almost. I think it was like June
put it out
last year.
Pre-transmit.
Yeah, just before. So that was the first time we played it live.
How's things? I was thinking about this the other day. How's that going to impact you? What's kind of happening with a lot of festivals? You know, they're kind of keeping the same lineups.
Yeah,
like in terms of them being pushed back. Is that? How do you kind of cope with that?
We're hoping, obviously, you hope to stay on the bill for ones that you were on. But then in terms of getting on festivals next year, you don't know what they're going to do, if they're going to keep the same lineup as before. But I guess you just need to wait and see. That's kind of out with our realm of what we can do. Do you know what I mean? I hope some keep the same, because I was supposed to be going to Mad Cool and that lineup was too good to be true. I knew it, so I'm hoping that one stays the same. But
who was on that?
the headline was like Billie Eilish, Taylor Swift, Mumford and Sons were playing.
Oh, shit band.
Come on.
No one likes Mumford and Sons. They like the George Ezra of guitar bands.
I like Mumford and Sons.
I can't get on board with it.
They have great songs. I've not done this lineup justice at all. There was like Phoebe Bridgers were playing.
Phineas was on it, wasn't he? Billie Eilish's brother.
Yeah, he was on it. I'm going to get it up just now. Give me 1 sec, because I need to share this.
Was that the one Strokes were on?
The Strokes were not on it. So everyone thought the Strokes were going to be on it, because it had like, they rumoured, and it was like a band. They were announcing like 2 bands, and the band like to the left of this hint ended in S, and everyone was like, "Oh, it's going to be the Strokes."
What band did it end up being?
It was Mumford and Sons. So you would have been very disappointed.
That is a big drop off. And
here we go. I've got it up. So Taylor Swift, Billie Eilish, The Killers, Mumford and Sons, Kings of Leon. Then you had like Foles, Royal Blood, Alt J, Tom Grennan, The Chats. So this good. Sports Team were on it. Sam Fender was on it. Young Blood.
Pretty stacked bill.
Yeah, no, it was too good to be true. So I hope that one stays the same for next year, and then I can go.
How does that work? Do you get your money back, or you got to just wait till next year and then go then? Or?
You can do either or, I think.
When did you first realise how big a problem COVID was going to be in terms of the music industry and the way it was going to impact yourselves as a band?
Very late, to be fair, which is bad. I was kind of not in the dark, but I didn't watch much about it. And then it was the week before we were going on tour. I'd been at band practice and then listening to the radio on the way back. Like, I got home and I was like to Jennifer, "This is quite bad, isn't it?" Like, but this was like the week before lockdown, so obviously it was quite bad. But they had like people on the radio show, and then I was like, "Oh, it's quite bad." And then in my head I was like, "Oh, but the gigs, which were at that point next week, they're only like 100 capacity, so maybe that'll go ahead. But I don't think Glasgow will go ahead," type thing. And then obviously none of them went ahead, because on the Monday they like put everything in the lockdown.
No, but I remember that, because we were completely didn't see it coming, because it was the Friday night we were at Dancing Tables.
Yeah, we were at Dancing Tables on like.
But like, I remember everyone there, like they were still. I remember Dancing Tables like had a full tour ahead of them, and so did you, and you were both kind of expecting that you would still get to go out on it and do the small 100 cap. We had shows the week after, like sold out Sneakies and Aberdeen, expecting them to go ahead, not even thinking that
they would
be postponed.
That's strange.
It crept up on everyone.
I thought it would kind of be phased, like the big ones would be cancelled, but then smaller like venues would be all right. No, so I was pretty late in realising like how bad it was. Obviously it's really bad, but everyone's in the same boat.
I mean, I guess it kind of felt like when it first started off, especially the government were just brushing it off, but it probably didn't help. Like kind of sending mixed messages, you know, everyone's kind of not worrying about it too much, but not realising the kind of full impact the situation was going to have.
No, it's weird, and it's still getting the mixed messages.
Well, no, you speak. Every venue says that they're expecting to come back at a different date,
and everyone's booked rescheduled dates, but you need to wait and even see if they're going to go ahead. You know, like at the minute they are in everyone's mind, but then
I don't know. I think a lot of folk have penciled in just being hopeful. But the issue is as well, things are changing so quickly. Because I remember when we rescheduled our Velour show in like March, we put it for like the start of August or like last weekend of July. And everyone was like, "Oh yeah, things will have settled down by then."
Things will have blown over by then, and then every festival's cancelled.
Yeah, it's not looking likely at the minute. And like, even like 4 weeks ago, we penciled in that those rescheduled Pleasurehead dates for September, and that looked like it'd be a dead set. And now it's like touch and go for them. No one knows if it's going to go ahead or what's going to happen.
Yeah, and then you wonder as well when they start opening again, will it be like phased? So will the like 100 caps open first because it's a smaller crowd, and then gradually as time goes on, the bigger venues open back up?
I think they'll just do it. Probably. I think they closed it off to start with. It was just going to be over 500 caps shutting down.
Yeah.
So I imagine they'll open back everything under 500, and then maybe a kind of middle and venues that are like a couple thousand. But I don't know when stadiums are going to be back. I think that's a while off.
The thing is as well, like at our shows and all the shows that I go to, I imagine you'll be the same. It's like there's no way 2 meter gaps are happening. People are just, as soon as a band comes on, cram in next to each other, and it's like packed, like so close in. So like how
that Libertine show at Christmas, imagine trying to do 2 meter spacing at that.
I know. Imagine having to stand still 2 meters apart from people and watch like the Libertines.
What would be the point?
I know.
Nah, I don't know how it's going to happen. It's all a bit of a mess, really.
Yeah, it's strange.
I mean, also a mess. You're a Hibs fan, are you not?
I am a Hibs fan, yes.
What do you make of yesterday's developments? Speaking of things that are a bit of a mess.
Well, I can't say I'm too upset. Obviously, I'll miss the big Derby games, but I won't miss them that much.
Do you think they'll get put down, or do you think they're going to try and expand the league?
Nah, I think they'll get put down. I think they have to. If it was any other team in the league, they wouldn't care that much to restructure. Do you know what I mean? If St Mirren were in last place, they would just let them go down.
It's a bit unfair though. I mean, how many points were they off of St Mirren?
It's like 4 or something.
Yeah, and there's still 8 games to play. Like, you can't really.
They were never clawing it back.
Shocking. Are you all still season ticket holders? Do you not used to Easter Road every week?
And Kieran are. Liam was until last season, and Michael doesn't like football. So 3 of us.
Do you not get your stuff played at Easter Road and stuff, things like that?
We have, yeah. We didn't, right? So we all had season tickets at this point, and we'd never been like played in the stadium. And then the day Addicted came out, there was a Hibs game, and we got played at the stadium, but we were on our way to tour, so we weren't at the game and didn't hear it.
How did you find out about it then?
Someone like sent us a video of the stadium.
Good stuff. To take it back to COVID though, get away from football, or back to COVID, back to music rather. Speaking a wee bit about how it was kind of quite late in the game, we realised everything was gonna be upset for a while. How did you start formulating your plan when you kind of realised that was occurring? How did you kind of brace for impact and restructure things?
Well, it's hard because a lot of our plans were kind of immediately the week after lockdown. So we were supposed to be on tour, and then we were supposed to be straight into the studio back down in London like the week after the tour was finished, which we then couldn't do either because then that was supposed to be doing new music to bring out before the big show in Glasgow, which was like supposed to be next week. So then all those things that were coming together ended up not happening at all.
I mean, it's pretty crazy how fast the time's kind of gone by. I mean, what is it, 2 months we've been in lockdown now?
Yeah, it's like 8 weeks, isn't it?
Like, just when you said that the show was supposed to be next week. Like, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It feels like we've kind of had a block of time just kind of cancelled out as opposed to actually occur.
Yeah, no, it's strange. And everyone's kind of trying to stay active online and keep people engaged and stay busy that way. But then I feel like people are running out of things to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, it's about trying to find ways to change it up. You guys have been keeping pretty. I feel like you've kind of been hitting it kind of spot on the mark in terms of doing stuff, but not oversaturating it. If that makes sense.
Thank you.
In terms of live streams and stuff like that, because I feel like there's a balance with live streams, isn't there?
Definitely, yeah. You can do too much, but we've been switching it up as well. Like not always doing them on Instagram, maybe doing like a Facebook one, and then the next week swapping over. It's quite good that way.
You got your lyric sheets and stuff as well, do you not? You've been putting them out.
Been putting stuff like that out. Try to put old like gig photos out, make people
nostalgic
think back to when they could actually go.
Did you have any stuff in the bank? Because I know you had stuff filmed at the Assembly Room show and things like that, didn't you? Did you have things like?
We've got rakes of footage from that, yeah. So we can kind of share that out to people. We have that full like video of Youth, which is out now on like
Some
or
Vivo,
channels.
I think, is it?
Yeah, from then. But I mean, it seems so long ago now, that gig. We literally not played a show this year. And
Have you not? Was that the last
Nah.
show?
Yep, December 27th was the last time we played.
Yeah, I guess, you had the tour like 3 days after lockdown or whatever.
Yeah, it was like March, so.
No, that was a good show. I feel like that if you're going to go out on a bang, that was probably quite a good.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a good night.
Do you think it's like more frustrating for bands of your size who are kind of right on the cusp of trying to kind of push for taking it to that next level, as opposed to like your more established bands, like your Circle Waves or your Blossoms or whatever?
I think, yeah, like, it's hard because you need to try and stay in front of people all the time. You want to try and like be at the forefront of people's like feed or mind or whatever. Usually you do that by putting out music and playing live, which is like two things that
have been taken away.
do. So then, because you're obviously at this stage, you're still building that platform, and those are the things that you would use to build it. Whereas now you need to try and keep the platform, like not platform, like keep the fan base that you have there, and try and build new fans on board with like your resources are gone down.
That's a good point. How do you take on board new fans? How can you keep growing as a band during a time like this? Like, have you?
Yeah, it's a weird one.
What's like happened with like monthly listeners?
TikTok.
Don't even start.
Ours have actually, they went up, which is good.
That's good. So you kind of still.
But I guess that kind of makes sense because
everyone's inside listening.
Everyone's
to music.
just listening to music, so it's good. Because there's still been bands like, if you look at like Vistas or Seagirls or the Snuts as well. We were right before it, but they had stuff to put out before.
Yeah, well, Vistas have got their album in, don't they?
Exactly. So that was all ready to go. So they're still like keeping people engaged, putting music out, which is good. So it's what people need just now, I think.
Yeah. Do you think in future you'll out record a couple of singles ahead? Yeah.
I think it's definitely worth having a like to learn for this would be have a bank of material that's like good to go.
I mean, it could strike again. That they are predicting that there could be like a second wave of the winter and stuff like that.
So if there's a little gap in between that we can get in the studio.
If you can get 2 months where you can get in the studio and smash out like 4 songs or whatever.
Yeah. Have
you been doing a lot? Well, obviously you've been writing with Liam over webcam, but have you been doing like a lot of demoing and stuff, or?
So it's same as what we did here. We're still working directly onto into Logic now. It was after like 2-week chat with Apple. So yeah, we're just working directly into that still, which is good. More little ideas than fully fledged like songs just now, but I guess we have time to build on those.
What is a little idea? Is it like a verse or a chorus or a hook or
a bit of both? A lot of companies have been giving away stuff like samples and stuff like that. So one like I found recently was like old drum machine samples. So I kind of like playing about with them was something new to me. So that's what I've been like starting with for a lot of stuff.
Have you used samples before?
Bits, not really here usually, but it's something we're trying to like. Usually here we're pretty bare bones in terms of like guitars, drums, and bass, and then anything extra would be in the studio.
You can have flash it out.
Yeah. Just to like get almost get it on the paper, but you know what I mean, get it on the sound. So I've been trying to play about with like new stuff just to keep it interesting because there's a lot of time to sit and mess about.
I mean, that's probably quite a good productive. I think it is important to keep productive, and I mean, you're obviously speaking about how you've got your routine and stuff, and you've not let the sleep pattern shift. But it is important, I think. I mean, do you set goals for yourself? Do you think I want to achieve this with what I'm getting up and doing today, or do you have aims?
I should. I've tried. I tried this week. I written a to-do list like yesterday, which has like stuff that I want to do. But then whether I stick to that or not.
In terms of writing, or does that come down to like admin stuff and promotional things as well?
More in terms of like finish this song, start a new idea type thing.
Yeah.
Than like the promotional stuff. That's more ongoing because that's a lot of that's like we would talk about what we wanted to do. Like if there's any. Sorry, on you go.
I was about to say, has that promotional stuff increased? Because I know, like from a blogging standpoint or whatever, I've kind of noticed I'm getting a lot more emails in every day from bands and stuff. Is it different to normal promotional side?
Slightly. Like we've had more. Like we did like the Sucker Live Fest.
Oh yes, yeah.
Which is one of the live streams. We done one for Dead Wax, which is the venue we're playing in Birmingham.
Yeah.
So like that side of promotion things is like new audiences that we've never played to. Which I guess we're still playing to them. I forgot this was a podcast. I just did the little. You can see me, but
you've done. What is the word for that? hyphenated quote thing with you.
We'll go with that.
Hyphenated quote thing. Yeah.
So yeah, I guess we're still playing an audience, but so it's like new reach that we've not had or played to before. So that's been quite good. A couple of like the question like interviews, but like remote as well.
I saw Liam was doing
Liam's
one, the other night.
done a couple of podcasts, as well.
Had you done a podcast yet?
No, it's my first one.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Well, you did that thing with Joe, did you not? I suppose that was a radio show.
I've been on Joe's radio show, yeah, and chatted on there. That was more live than.
Are you a fan of interviews, or what's your kind of?
I like doing them. I like listening to them as well. So,
I was about to say, which do you prefer?
What, listening to or
doing them? I
mean, I won't listen to my interview. I never listen to our stuff. Like I've never Liam's any of the podcasts he's been on. I don't listen to them. But I like. It'd be a bit weird, wouldn't it? Yeah, I mean, you feel like you know what's coming. It's like spoilers. But no, it's good. I like doing them, but I don't like listening back to my own because.
I've done a couple over like lockdown. I don't know. It's maybe look at it differently, being on the other side of it, and it's maybe more surprised that people do so many of them because it's not.
Well, I know you've done a couple, Alex, because I have listened to a couple.
The people I did it with were lovely, but I just feel quite uncomfortable when you're on the other side of it. It's weird how it kind of shifts, like when all the questions are kind of getting.
Do you feel a lot better asking the questions rather than?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is more conversational, really, isn't it? This is less of an interview and kind of just a chat about.
Yeah.
About what's going on.
About what's happening.
Yeah. When's the tour rescheduled for? Is it November?
First week in November.
How do you? It must be. I mean, that must be the real killer, is the uncertainty. Like, how do you plan?
It's strange.
For the rest of the year.
I guess no one can. Really, just need to wait and see.
Are there other issues that you feel like are underneath the surface that aren't really getting spoken about as much as well in regards to the impact it's having upon the industry? Because people are obviously speaking a lot about the difficulty of, like we're just saying, the uncertainty, and also the impact that it's having upon a lot of people who work as full-time professionals. But is there other things that you feel people aren't talking about at the minute or aren't looking at in terms of
I think it's hard for people to be stuck inside all the time and not see their friends a lot of time, not see their family. That's a massive issue just now in terms of like people's mental health, being inside all the time, feeling stuck. I feel like there's also somewhat of a pressure to do things. Like
it's like be productive.
Be creative when I don't think there has to be. Like get up and do nothing if you can. One day, why not?
There are important days when you do that.
What, when you do nothing?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think everyone needs days like that.
When you do nothing though, what actually is doing nothing? Like what's the thing you do if you're gonna switch off and you're gonna just chill out and you're like, I'm gonna devote this day to just kinda getting something back?
Well, it depends on the person, I guess, because to some people doing nothing might be sitting in front of the computer, but then for other people doing work sitting in front of the computer all day.
I was about to say all I do is sit in front of a computer and just.
So then they're doing nothing would maybe be not going on the computer or on social media or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, I guess social media kind of feeds into that pressure, doesn't it? When you see what other people are doing.
For sure, yeah. When you see people being active and being engaged and all that, you think we need to keep up with that. Or
do you feel the same as a band? Like in terms of looking at other bands on social media and that kind of spurs you on a bit? Definitely,
yeah. Like, not spurs you on, like not like in a competition way, but like you can definitely take influence from things other people are doing. If they've came up with a good idea for a live stream or a post or whatever, and you think like our fans would quite like our version of that,
yeah,
and like taking influence from it. Definitely,
you don't want to lose like fall behind the pack as well, if you know what I mean.
No, well, you're obviously, as a consumer as well of like following bands and stuff, you can see what everyone else is doing, so you want to try and not replicate, but like come up with your own ideas and your own way to be amongst that.
I mean, especially for someone like yourself who's quite big on the, don't want to say marketing aspect, but the kind of social media side of the band and things like that, and the aesthetic, for lack of a better word.
I find all that very interesting. Like I sit and listen to the podcasts and watch stuff on social media. Like,
have you always been quite into that, like the kind of that side of the band, like from the off, or when did that start to catch your attention?
Back in like when we put our like first ever EP out, how I got into like the whole making of the artworks and all the social media stuff was we basically had hired someone to do the artwork for our single and EP, and they gave the single artwork, and then we pay them, and he never replied, and we still didn't have the EP artwork.
So you got diddled.
So I was like, oh, we need it more than like the money is a non-issue. We need the stuff. So then I kind of had to learn how to do it because time meant that we needed it like right away. So from that is when I first ever got like Photoshop. I made the artwork for that first EP, which was terrible.
Oh, it's no longer on Spotify.
The artwork, not the EP.
EP was good. Some good tunes in that EP. But was it Heart Brigade?
Heart Brigade was the first single, which we had artwork for.
Wait, so was Heart Brigade not on the EP?
That was on the EP, but we put that out as like a single from the EP before we put out the actual EP.
Yeah.
So I made the artwork for that back in like 2015, and all the kind of like promotional stuff, like videos, which looking back were not great, but
at the
they
time,
were my first ever time doing it, and they worked.
That's what you want,
their purpose. So from them, I just always kind of made stuff and like thought about what I would like things to look like or the layout and all that sort of thing. It's interested me since then. But then I'd like to think I've got better at it since then, and I've certainly done a lot more since then. But
I mean, it's very consistent, isn't it? Like across the kind of all three of the platforms, you can kind of see there's a very distinct pattern. Is that the kind of trend?
Yeah, I'm glad you think so.
What's like the biggest realization you've had in terms of, you know, social media and operating that kind of side of the game?
One thing that I liked when I noticed it. So this is so gimpy. Twitter crops your photos, so if you tweet like a gig poster, you can't see the full one if you're scrolling, which upsets me. So if you crop it or make a new asset, you know, like a post. So if you make that in a 9:16, I think, ratio, then it doesn't crop it. So whatever is in that space is going to come up full.
Yeah.
On as people are scrolling. Or a GIF. GIF doesn't crop either. So if you can add a little moving element and make it in a GIF, it won't crop that either.
I think this has been changed though. I'm sure.
What now?
Because I was scrolling through because I remember you told me this once before, and I was scrolling through your thing. And I noticed a GIF that had been cropped.
No, honestly, my GIFs shouldn't be cropped.
There was one.
My GIFs.
My GIFs. You've been undone.
As far as I know, my thing worked.
It's all those little tips and tricks, though, isn't it? That kind of are what you need, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people would find that like Kieran's just like put in and out. It doesn't matter. Whereas I really like to think about it. Don't know why.
I don't want to say they're on equal terms, but I think the gap between how you look and how you sound and the importance of those things is getting smaller. Like it's becoming more important how you look and less important how you sound. And some.
Well, there's a lot of people
for better or worse
launch a career in the other one from the other side of it. Do you know what I mean? Like some people have stemmed from just having really good social media, which has helped like build them up.
I mean, you look at a lot of these bands that you know, are all like models and stuff and haven't put anything out, like music wise.
Yeah.
But they're all like very big on like the visual kind of aesthetic and all that regard.
We definitely don't need to worry about the careers kicking up. Especially with this lockdown haircut that's happening.
Yeah, I feel like that is one of the biggest struggles is not being able to get my haircut. It's kind of starting to I mean, you can see people who are listening can't, but it's
mine's just going over my ears now. I'm usually very short at the sides.
Nah, I seen when Liam was doing our live stream, it's kind of
his was long and messy anyway. So I feel like it's just...
He can pull it off though. He suits it. He gets away with it.
Whereas everyone else is just getting out of hand.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us have cut our own hair yet.
Out of the band.
Yeah.
I know quite a few folk who've done it, like pals and stuff. But I'm not bothered enough. I think what I'm gonna do is grow it out and then get a mullet just as soon as we go back to lockdown. Just get it.
You know, like you're joining an Australian surf rock band.
I'm not convinced I could pull off the mullet.
I think you'd be alright.
Guy from Voodoo's that supported you. He rocks. Nice he rocks a pretty good mullet.
He does have a nice mullet.
But that's quite a bit. I was going to say that we're going to bring it to a close, but I feel like complimenting someone for a mullet. So.
It's a weird way to finish it, yeah.
But that's a very vintage society podcast kind of end to it. But now, man, I appreciate you coming on and having a chat with me about everything that's going down, and hopefully we'll do a proper one when we kind of speak about the band as a whole once we're allowed to see each other again. And
sounds good.
Don't have to keep 5 meters apart or whatever, 2 meters.
Thanks for having me on.
I've hit record, so I'm hoping that should be. I'm not used to this whole kind of Zoom podcast thing. It's a bit different from normal.
Well, this is, I mean, to be fair, I'd never done a podcast ever, but me and a couple of mates have been doing ones on like films past few weeks. Just like the three of us get together and we kind of go like, yeah, like one of us will, like we'll go through a film that either one of us or two of us haven't seen. We'll never watch a film that all three of us have seen before. If it's a film that none of us have seen, then that's better. But like, yeah, that's kind of like the vibe that we go through.
What sort of stuff have you been watching?
It's varied quite a bit. Like the first one, I think it was Wedding Crashers.
Is that
The first one, like
Ben Stiller?
Owen Wilson. No, Ben Stiller's not a bit. It's Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn, Christopher Walken. So we did that, some sort of like light-hearted ones, and then we've just done Lost in Translation, which I loved. Like, I mean, I've seen it before, but it was the first time I'd watched it since I'd been to Japan. Like, I've watched it 3 times now, but the previous 2 times were like years and years ago before I was touring, and I kind of like the film definitely resonates a bit more now. So
yeah, it's got a great ending, that film as well.
Well, yeah, that's so actually when we finished recording this, I'm going on to record the podcast about Lost in Translation, and I was speaking to one of my pals earlier, and he was very much kind of like, we were both sort of chatting about, you know, what the ending means, because like all three of us have very different views on it.
What's your theory? What do you think he says?
I'm not going to say that. You have to tune into Saturday Night Theatre to find out.
What's the name of the podcast? We'll plug it while we're on.
It's called Saturday Night Theatre. I think it's streamed on Shutdown FM.
Shutdown FM.
So it gets streamed on that, but I think because last week's one was really good, Ocean's 11, we did that last week, and we really liked just how that worked, and it definitely had a bit more of an audience. But I think like from now on, we're going to start putting them up onto YouTube as well, like after we record it, so people can just watch it on demand.
It's good to have a platform like that as well, YouTube, where people can kind of. I find that when I'm doing interviews and stuff, and people stumble across it like months later and things, because it's always there. It's not like an article on a website somewhere where it disappears and no one ever sees it again. Like people are always on
exactly.
Stuff.
You're in much more of a explorative mood when you're on YouTube.
Yeah,
you
definitely.
Want to see what rabbit hole you go down.
I redid the 3 Oceans films as well recently, 11, 12, and 13, and it was I love them. They hold up. Yeah, they're fucking sick. Really good films.
12. I'm gonna rewatch that soon because I'm not a huge fan of 12, but like 11 and 13, I love.
Yeah. 12 goes in a few interesting directions, like the whole Julia Roberts thing, you know, where they kind of pretend that she's Julia Roberts.
Well, like 13's just the first one, but like the stakes are a bit higher and it's a bit more insane. Yeah, I think that's really why I like it, you know. And
you've got Al Pacino as well, which kind of just raises the quality of any film as soon as he's in it.
Exactly.
Who were you in Japan touring with when you went there?
So I've actually been 5 times.
Man, 5 times.
First time I went there was with Blossoms, and then I went there with the Amazons, which was weird because I kind of like ended up half tour managing on that one because our tour manager had to get like a back operation like a couple of weeks before we were going, but it meant he couldn't fly. We were kind of just told like, you need to take lead on this. So that was kind of weird, but it was all right. Like there were certain aspects that Mike had dealt with, and there were other bits that I was more comfortable taking on. So it was a bit, it was funny.
Imagine you learn a lot from that as well, though, don't you? It's kind of
it's not something that I would necessarily want to do all the time, but it was nice to kind of go like, oh, I had a wee stab at that. And then the other times I was in Japan was with Blossoms as well. So I love it there. Like it was really stressful the first time I was there because it's just so different from here. Like even though like every major city around the world seems to be the same, I find that Tokyo has just got something very, very, very different about it, and it just freaks you a little bit.
The fans are meant to be pretty crazy over there as well, are they?
Oh, it was insane. So the first time I went, I'd been with Blossoms for like maybe 3 months. I hadn't been with them long. I remember when we got off the plane, like when we came out of the airport, fans were going fucking mental, like taking photos of the band and all that, and that was fine. And we got to the hotel and there were fans there. I turned around and like there were people taking photos of me and Chris, the sound engineer, and I was just like, what the fuck? Like,
it's just kind of fandom on another scale.
Instagram followers went through and it was weird. It was like fucking Beatlemania, but it's like, I mean, it wasn't unique to Blossoms, but like that's how they are with everyone. Like every band that comes through, but that doesn't make it any less sincere. They're just like really, really intense. Like in fact, when I was there with Amazons, I think I left like my ID or whatever at like the hotel. So I was like, right, I need to pop back. Like we were all going out for a drink, and I was like, right, I need to go and grab can't remember, like either my money or my passport or whatever. And when I headed back to the hotel, this woman came running up to me with like a little goodie bag. It was like a little Star Wars goodie bag. And she was like, oh, Bob, I've got this for you. And I was like, oh, that's sweet. And she was like, yeah, I know you like Star Wars. And I was like, that's really, really sweet. And I was like, oh, the Amazons guys, they're not here, like they're away, like the bar. She was like, oh no, like I'm not here for Amazons. I just knew you were staying here, and I was like, that's adorable and terrifying at the same time. But yeah, so that was the thing. That was the thing. It was like, even though I wasn't there with the band that she is like a huge fan of, she still knew that someone associated with that band was at that hotel. I mean, to be fair, it's a dead giveaway in Tokyo. Every band stays in the same hotel in Tokyo. So once you know which hotel it is, to just hang about there all the time.
Yeah. How long were you out there for when you did that tour? How long does it typically take to go around Japan and kind of do the main places?
I'm trying to think. So I think you always ended up with like 2 or 3 days off when you when you get there, you'll get your day off. Then you'll do, typically we've always done like Osaka and Tokyo, or like Tokyo and Osaka. But like I'd say you always get like at least a day off in each city. And I think the promoters try and make sure you get a couple of days in Tokyo. I've probably racked up like just under a month time in Japan over the past couple of years. Which is not bad.
That's pretty cool, yeah.
But yeah, I'm very much missing.
What tour were you on when this kind of all started kicking off? What were you? Because I know you were on the road, weren't you?
Yeah. I was in the middle of a UK tour. So when I'm assuming you say when all this kicked off, you mean the dreaded COVID.
Yeah, when shit hit the fan.
Yeah, so I was on. So this year, my main gig was going to be Blossoms, as it kind of always has been. But like this, they came out with their third album at the start of the year, which went to number 1. That was great. We had a nice, like a really busy calendar lined up, loads of major festival appearances.
But you're not doing a stadium or something as well on that tour?
So yeah, that tour was starting off, it was really weird. It was going to be starting off, it started off in Cork at a venue called Cypress Avenue, which has a capacity of about 500, and it was finishing at Manchester Arena, which had a capacity of like 15,000 or something like that. It was always kind of this thing of like, yeah, we'll do the arena one day. And it was just a matter of like when. It was like, like they did Castlefield Bowl last year, and I think if they didn't do Castlefield Bowl last year, they'd have done the arena last year. But it was one of those. It was always just this. It was like, when are we going to do or when we do the arena? Like it was this thing you knew was always going to be coming along. So then to get it announced, it was like, fucking great. This is it. This is, because it was like, once we've done that arena, that sets the bar of what we like, the size of show that we can pull off.
Yeah. And
I think it would have moved things along, and like, it would have meant that after we'd done that, we could have done another couple of arenas on the next tour. So, like, once you've got that under your belt, I mean, I know that that's not necessarily how it works, but at least it definitely made that a possibility. When we were on the tour, I mean, I didn't really think much of coronavirus. It seemed very much this thing that was isolated to Asia, and I think everyone thought that.
Yeah, it crept up on us very quickly, I feel.
Yeah, it sort of escalated very quickly. And I remember like the night before I went away, I mean, so like, because we'd been gigging like even though like the tour started at the end of February, we had like warm-up shows at the start of February and the end of January. I'd been working on the prep work for this tour all year. Like I had like 10 days away on holiday at the start of the year. But other than that, like I hadn't been home because I was down in Manchester doing the prep work, going through all the guitars, rebuilding the rigs. And it was all with the thing of like, it has to be perfect for Manchester Arena. Like that's what we were building up to. And I remember the day before we went away, like before I sort of set off, my mum said like, you just like, take care of yourself, like be careful, because I think that the conversation at this point was that, coronavirus will come to the UK, and there were shows starting to get cancelled in Europe. I think at that point we all thought it was maybe going to be like a 2-week, 3-week thing, like at worst. Didn't really think it was going to be bad. I mean, at this point, Wuhan don't think had been locked down for that long, and Italy had maybe only just gone into lockdown. But we still felt it was pretty safe. We were going through, each day, it was never really part of the conversation. It was kind of, to be honest, it was almost a joking point. I remember, because you arrive at the venue, you meet the venue staff, you shake their hand. And I remember we were at Rock City in Nottingham, and like we shook the hands with the technical man. He was like, "Yeah, we probably shouldn't be doing that." I was like, "Yeah, but mate, have you seen your microphone cupboard? You're probably safe. You can, And it was that thing. It was just like, it just wasn't that much of a threat. And it was kind of, I think there was the mentality of like, this is just so out of proportion. I always remember. I say always remember like it was fucking ages ago. It feels like ages ago now. But we did a show in Sheffield, and that was probably it was one of the last shows, but it was brilliant. The crowd were just insane. I mean, I remember every time we've done Sheffield, it's been fucking mental. Like just pints in the air as soon as the bloody intro tape starts rolling. It was hot, sweaty, but the crowd were loving it. Band were loving it. You know, like it just everything worked. No technical hitches or anything. Because we had a few of them, but Sheffield was the one where it was like, right, everything is falling into place and we've hit our stride, sorted.
How many folk were there?
Sheffield Academy, maybe like 2,500, 3,000.
Yeah, good size.
Yeah, and then we were in like, kind of everyone was in a bit of a celebratory mood afterwards. Like, we got patted down, stayed up, had a wee drink, and we were going on to Bath afterwards. But it wasn't that long a drive, so it was one of those where it was like, well, do I go to sleep now, or do I, just wait until we park up in Bath at like 3 a.m,
Yeah,
and we'll get going, sort of thing. We went, like, got in my bed. And it was weird because, like, we still hadn't really been sitting chatting about coronavirus. And at this point, tours had started to be cancelled. Maybe there was only maybe like one or two tours. Anything else that had been cancelled, it was all like, bands were cancelling their shows in Italy because gigs in Italy were banned at that point.
yeah.
It still seemed pretty far off, but I remember coming in the next day and there was just a weird vibe. We came into the venue, found the showers, had my shower, got sorted, made myself a cup of tea. And this is before the equipment had rolled in. I remember like the rest of the crew started coming through, and I'm normally the first one in the venue, not out of any like importance, but just I'm an early riser. I like to get in, get myself sorted for the day and that. And I just I turned to our monitor guy and just was like, I'm getting a bit scared now. And he was like, yeah, I'm a bit worried. And I don't know what it was. It was almost just like everyone collectively, just that switch in our heads just went, what the fuck's happening?
Yeah.
Because we hadn't spoke about it, we hadn't really acknowledged it. But all of a sudden, it was horrible. The feeling just got more and more bleak. And I remember like our stage manager came through and was like, yeah, I don't know how safe this tour is because I've just seen Tom, the singer, and he's looking like, as white as a ghost, worried. The band just seemed really worked up. I was like, it was one of those where you were just like, this was on maybe like Friday, and he was like, this tour could be over come Monday, and we still had like over 2 weeks left. And I kind of was just like, we just got more and more worked up, and we've all got our little corners of the stage, and I've got my area where my work case is and my 2 guitar vaults and that, just my area that I sit in. And I just sat down on my little stool, and I mean, to be honest, I cried because I was just like, holy shit. We were, you went onto Facebook and just there were umpteen like gig cancellations, starting to come up. I mean, it was like so-and-so has pulled their tour, like the Who had pushed their tour back by a year. We were told that like Lewis Capaldi's loading into London, but they don't even know whether tonight's gig's going to go ahead because this was the day that Boris Johnson was meant to be announcing, or we were very much braced for Boris Johnson to announce that all mass gatherings had to be pulled. And we even kind of thought this show tonight might not even happen. It was just really weird. It was horrible. It was weird how emotional everyone went. Like, we were, you either kind of were like dead quiet or you would disappear to find out your quiet area, weeping or it was horrible. And I've never seen anything. Do you know what? The only other time that I've felt that heavy atmosphere was Glastonbury 2016, which was the day of the Brexit vote, where it just kind of felt like the rug had just been pulled out from under your feet. But that's a very separate subject, which we can delve into if we want. But that was fucking awful. But yeah, it was that day in Bath was really shit. And the gig happened, and you know what? I remember saying to the band afterwards, how are you after that? And they were like, you know what, we're fine. And it was kind of because it wasn't the best gig in the world. The crowd were okay, but at this point we did notice that like crowd numbers started to dwindle a little bit, like no shows, sort of thing, because these gigs were all sold out. It was like, why is there only like 75% of the people here? And I think we were all kind of a bit aware of that, but it was one of those where like there were no technical problems, the band didn't fuck up, crowd that were there were good. And I said to the band, I was like, well, to be fair, that's all we needed. We just needed a gig to like prove, like just remind us like what we do and why do we enjoy it, because it's not all about being Manchester Arena. It's as long as people enjoy it, and like seeing people enjoy it makes you enjoy it. And when you kind of give yourself a bit of a pat on the back if there's no issues in your gig. I mean, not that there's gig issues at every show, but you know, it's one of those you're just constantly braced for it. And so it was really nice afterwards. And it kind of was like, well, do you know what? Boris, at this point, Boris hadn't pulled gigs because we kind of, I remember we all gathered, like it was after soundcheck, we were all waiting. I think it comes through, like the broadcast to come through at 5 o'clock. And everyone was out with their phone, like watching BBC, waiting for it to thingy through. But everyone's internet was like dipping out. But I think it was Josh. He eventually got the broadcast first, and we all gathered around him, listening to what he said. And, you know, if anyone said anything, you were just immediately told to fucking shut up or whatever, because we're all listening to it. And I was like, afterwards, I was like, it felt like fucking wartime. Like that's what it felt like. I was like, that's what I can imagine. It felt like just how tense it was feeling at that point. But we were like, well, do you know what? No, the gigs are still happening. We're sound. And I think maybe we had like a feeling of calm for about 24 hours. And then it all just started to feel heavy again. So I had like a day off. So we all kind of just chilled. But then it just, like, the next gig came along. And we were just like, oh, this is, you know, watch this. There's going to be no one here. And people did show up. You know, it was still a good gig. But it was just starting, like, the weight of the situation, I think, was maybe starting to bear on. And I think at this point we agreed, we were like, Manchester Arena won't happen.
Yeah.
If we're lucky, we might do because we're going to be doing like 3 nights at Kentish Town Forum in London. And it was like, we might get as far as London. You know, if we're lucky, we might get as far as Glasgow or whatever. But it was one of those where like, Arena won't happen because it's too big.
Yeah.
But because the other shows were a little bit smaller, like they were less than 5,000.
There's a bit of hope.
Like that might work. And then the band, management and the band made the decision.
Out of like a moral kind of decision, do you think?
I think, yeah, partly moral, and you know, probably just for the fact that I don't know. I mean, it wasn't nice to hear it, but at the same time, we were all quite relieved. You
know, the realization, you know, how it kind of just seemed to hit quite quick.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that was? Do you feel like sometimes you're maybe a bit isolated on tour, or why do you think it kind of just felt like it hit all at once?
You live in the bubble. And I'm not watching the news at 6 o'clock every night. You know, when the news is going out, that's the one point where, like, either I'll still be doing my prep work, you know, doing like restringing or cleaning, or it'll be the point where I'll go back to my bunk on the bus and just chill. Maybe not necessarily sleep, but just chill for a bit. It takes for something really big to get your attention.
And this was quite a big event.
Yeah, and I think that was the thing, is that because it maybe for everyone else, it's slowly been ramping up. Whilst we were in this bubble, and then all of a sudden it just went from 0 to fucking 100.
Yeah, just hit you, yeah.
And I think maybe we'd all been thinking it in the back of our heads for a few weeks, but it's worrying because, I mean, we were the first industry to suffer. You know, Nicola Sturgeon's announced today that lockdown will. This is the thing. I'm up to date with all the news now because I get to watch the fucking briefings every day. But yeah, you know, Sturgeon's announced that there will be easing of measures in a week's time.
Yeah.
And that gets people a step closer to being back to work, but that's only a step closer for the people who were the last to get pulled off of work.
Yeah,
we were the first to get, you know, dropped, and we're going to be the last to come back, and that's the scary and frustrating thing. To be honest, whenever I hear from a manager, well, not a manager, but if I ever hear from anyone that speaks about, like, you know, shows that are being rescheduled to such and such a date, doesn't really mean anything. Promoters aren't in control of when they can put shows back on. Governments aren't in control of when shows can go back on. It literally is all down to the virus, because you're hearing about, there's some states in America that are holding shows again. And like Spain are looking at holding gigs again, like in June. But you know, we all know that there's going to be a second wave of this. Yeah, not to sound too gloomy, but I'm very real that like any sort of easing in lockdown is only going to be temporary. There's going to be like a second sort of lockdown scenario.
Yeah, I mean, speaking about winter, weren't they, that they think it'll kind of hit again once things get colder and it's kind of tougher?
Well, yeah, that's where they need to get like a lot. I mean, I don't want to go too deep into the science part because I really don't know what I'm speaking about. But yeah, it's like, I really don't know when I'm going back to work. Like at the absolute earliest, I'd say December, but I don't think so, because I think it's getting to the point that like promoters are will be booking shows because you kind of got to, it's their job, but they'll be booking gigs knowing full well that those gigs might not happen. Like so it's the prep work. It takes so long to prepare for a tour that why put in all that work if the work's not going to happen, like, because then that's just lost money, it's lost time. And so that's the thing, is like, even when it is safe, it's kind of like, well, who's the first one to go? Like, who's the first one to start up? It's a really, really, really weird scenario there, where we all want to go back to work. We want to go back and be safe. You know, I don't want to be on the first tour back after lockdown only for it to cause another spread of the virus. It's as I keep saying, it's just horrible. But the thing is that it is my trade. It's what my gig sort of depends on. So it's
a tricky situation.
Yeah, and I definitely felt that on the final few days of tour, where I was like, we shouldn't be out on tour because it's not right that people could, you know, be coming to these gigs and potentially coming into contact with the virus. But at the same time, I was also like, well, I'm a self-employed person. If this tour falls through, I'm not going to get paid for the cancelled shows. So for every day that I'm still on the road, that's a little bit of money in my pocket that I might need to rely on. And that's kind of like, it's weird because I did another podcast at the start of lockdown. It'd be interesting to compare how it sounded.
I was having a listen to do research for this, and it's quite interesting how things have changed so drastically in that month.
Yeah, and I felt actually really bad after when I listened back to it. It's like, I used the word money so many times when I'm speaking about it. I was like, he just sounds like the sort of guy that's like, I sound like a fucking Tory, let's face it. Just, you know, speaking about money when people's lives are at stake. But I was speaking to one of my mates about it the other day, and he was like, you know, well, loyalty is very sort of like, you can measure someone's loyalty depending on how money changes it. And I was like, but when you're self-employed, money it's not about being greedy. Money is your livelihood.
Yeah, it's what you need to survive.
Yeah, that's the reality of it. So it was kind of like this weird balance that you kind of had to take. And that's the thing, you know, I want to go back to earning the money that I was earning. You know, I liked, you know, being able to go on my nice holiday in January and all that. I'm not going to be able to do that next year.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's not worth doing that if it's not safe. So it's like you're very much in like two minds.
How are you like adapting to life being at home? Because I imagine going 100 miles, per hour on the road and then suddenly just coming to a standstill and being stuck at that for a few months will be a bit tough. Or...
So there's some days where I'm absolutely fine. I managed to keep myself busy. Like for the first couple of, like maybe the first week that I was back, I was probably really, I still lived with my parents. I still do. The idea was that me and my missus were going to be getting a house this year. That was just based on what I had planned work-wise, which that's, very much had to go in the back burner. So I'm in the fortunate position. I don't have a property that I'm not having to worry about rent and all that. But I think for the first week off a tour, I maybe was a little bit intolerable. I was really angry, scared, frustrated, and I still am. I still get that way. But there's some days that are maybe a bit more manageable. Like there was like one point where I went through like all of like me and my brother's guitars. I mean, to be fair, there's still ones that need to be given some attention, but I kind of was just like, I'm going to give all these up, set up, because I genuinely had, I just never had the time, and I got them all at a point before I was touring. So before I really knew what I was doing. And that was interesting, that was cool. I liked that, it keeps me sharp. But that was at the point where I was like, well, I'm going back to work in July, so I better stay sharp.
That podcast you did, the thing that stuck out to me from that is that was at like start of April, and you were speaking in it about going back at the start of August and stuff. And it's mental to think. I was the same. Like I booked in shows for like August, like the whole month I've got shows on. Logistically, those happenings going to be unlikely. It just seems to keep getting worse as time goes on, and it seems further and further away.
Yeah, like the way I described it to someone was like, I feel like I'm in a tunnel, and the further into that tunnel I go, the light at the end of it just keeps moving further away.
That's a good metaphor, yeah. On
my bad days, if we're going to like speak sort of frankly from a mental health standpoint,
yeah,
like, on bad days where I'm really feeling very, very scared and frustrated about the situation, that is how I feel. And it's horrible.
Yeah.
And it is days where it's like, you just feel like agitated. And I think, you just like, there's been days where I'm sat there and I'm just like, with very little warning, I just say to my folks, right, I'm up. I need to go out for my walk now. Just get out of the house, because you just feel so... Not to say that people don't understand, but I say it to a lot of people I speak about, is that it's coming back to that thing of being like the first people to get pulled out of work, but you're going to be the last to return. And that's a horrible feeling, because everyone, we are all in this together to an extent, but our experiences of this are all going to be very, very different. But I feel like for the self-employed entertainment side, particularly the crew, yeah, as I keep saying, it's horrible. That's the only way I can describe it. Is it's fucking horrible and grim and dark because I just haven't a clue what's going to be happening with it. So there's some days where it's pretty unbearable, to be honest, and you get really frustrated because you can't change that. But then there's other days where you form some sort of routine, like for a couple of days, and that keeps you busy and all that. Like a couple of folk have said to me, is like, this is the one time in your life where you'll get to do absolutely fuck all and not feel guilty about it. But you still do feel guilty about it,
The thing is, as well, though, if you love what you're doing and that's just taken away from you, I imagine you'd rather be on tour with Blossoms than you would be sitting doing fuck all.
Yeah, it's all to do with that, the atmosphere. Even during a shit gig, that there's still an atmosphere. Even if things are going fucking tits up for it, the guitars could be fucking producing some mental sound that you don't know how to get rid of, but you're still contributing to a gig and people are still enjoying it.
Yeah.
And you take that away at the end of every show. There's been very few shows, I could probably count on one hand how many shows that I've that have wrapped up and I've gone, well, that was fucking awful, and that I felt that I didn't work properly or that the crowd were, not too much. I never blame it on the crowd because there's probably only about maybe 4 or 5 shows out of 4 years that I've been doing it at this level that I've been dissatisfied with, which is not bad.
Yeah, it's a pretty good ratio.
But and it's the cat. I still speak to the other crew lads, and that's all great. But I like texting them, I like messaging them, but it's not the same as being on a bus, fucking shooting the shit at 1 a.m, and it's not. I know it's not about getting, to be honest, I'm not fucking Lemmy from Motorhead. I don't drink Jack Daniels fucking 24/7. That's not what it's about. But you can't beat those moments where you spontaneously end up staying up till 2 a.m, chatting away with the keys tech, and he's telling you all these stories about his fucking career or what it is. It's just the atmosphere and the feeling of that collective of people.
Kind of camaraderie.
Yeah, that'd be the word that I'm looking. I do miss that, and it's that's a big part of it. The people that you work with, and I speak to. I have spoke to all of them during lockdown. There's some that I speak to more than others, just because you don't want to be bothering everyone, sort of thing. But
it's important to keep connected as well.
It's just, but it's just not the same. There was one of them said this, and I was like, this is exactly what lockdown feels like. It feels like during the summer holidays when all your mates have gone off on holiday, so you've got nobody to fucking play with. Especially when the weather's nice. The weather's nice, but you can't do anything. And that's probably, when lockdown's at its best, that's how it feels. And when it's at its worst, it's just unbearable. But it's one of those, we've all kind of just had to get used to it. But on a brighter note, after me sounding like a gloomy bastard, I'm trying to suss out a way of keeping busy, when lockdown gets lifted to an extent that, because I've not always done it, but last year, maybe the year before, I kind of periodically would do, if I had a month off, I would take some guitar setups on whilst at home. So I'd get I did some stuff for the lads and the Capolos.
Good guys.
Offline, a couple Aberdeen bands, Van Sleep and all that. And I'm probably going to be doing that again. So anyone that I've just listed off in a band there, you'll probably get a message from me going, let me set up your jazz master.
You need stuff like that though to keep busy and give you a sense of kind of focus and purpose.
Well, exactly. And the thing is, these are working guitars. They might not be working guitars on Academy tours, but they're still getting played just as much. And it's the end of the day, that's kind of where I started anyway. But I think I'm going to be doing that. I'm just trying to work out a way that, because I have friends who have been doing this during lockdown, which is great. They've managed to work a way that, is contactless, it's safe.
Yeah.
And I probably could have, but I'm very wary that I don't want to fuck it up. So
you'll be careful.
I'm waiting for lockdown to kind of get wound down to a point where I feel comfortable enough to take work on. So I'm hoping, to be fair, maybe in a month's time I'll be working on that. And I'm kind of also looking at, this is me plugging my business for a month's time. By the way.
Go for it. Yeah.
I'm looking to do some custom pedal board builds, junction boxes and stuff like that. But it's just I want to do little bits like that because it expands my skill set, keeps me busy. If I make a bit of money in the process, great.
Handy, yeah.
So that's that really. So that's kind of I think the past couple of days that's kind of been my my train of thought, my sort of focus is just like, right, if lockdown is going to get, obviously it won't get fully wound down, social distancing will very much be a thing for at least for the rest of the year. But, what way can I function even though I'm not on tour? So,
do you think when touring does come back, it'll be the same? Do you think the industry can return in the same way, or do you think it's going to be different? Do you think it's going to change?
I think eventually, I could see a lot of gigs happening in like theatre venues where they're all seated. I think, even if you went to like the Academy in Glasgow, I think a lot of those size of venues will become fully seated temporarily, because to me, a fully seated venue is easier to control where people are, rather than like putting fucking big tape boxes on the ground and going, right, well, you have to stand in this box with your party of three. And then, like that's just going to be, I think, seats. I've always noticed that, like seated venues, people just stick by the rules a wee bit more. It's much easier to control. Crowds might not like that being controlled a little bit more, but if they want to enjoy live music, it's something they're going to have to maybe put up with, for a while. It's kind of been said about like PPE for touring crew. I think to an extent we might need it, but like I don't know how the fuck I can do my job with wearing a face mask, because these gigs are fucking roasting at the best of times. Same with like gloves. I don't know how I can work on a guitar whilst wearing latex gloves without fucking smearing the bloody finish. So to me, I feel like in that part of the work, that can't change, but where gloves and masks might be used is during load-in, because you've got the touring party, which is the band and their crew, but then for each show that you do, there's going to be local production staff, and there'll also be local stagehands who will help set up, say, the lighting rig or the audio package. And whilst we can control, like, I think it would be, practice that before a tour goes out, that I have to like isolate for 2 weeks before going out, or I need to prove that I've not had symptoms for 2 weeks before joining the tour. Everyone in the crew has to do that. Everyone in the band needs to do that. Yeah, that's great. So we go out and we're essentially quarantined together on the bus. Because that's the thing, I mean, how the fuck do you get people between venues with social distancing in place when you're on a bus? So I feel like at that point, the touring party is seen as a household. During the setup in the morning, when we've got these local crew in who we don't know if they're safe to be around, and they don't know if we're safe to be around, where both parties might have to wear masks at that point. But I feel like at sound check, basically from sound check through to pack down at the end of the night, it could work pretty normally. Social distancing maybe backstage when it becomes between the touring party and the local production party. Yeah, I think distancing we need to be involved there, but we'll just have to wait and see. I think that's workable. I think the thing that really would be impacted though would be music festivals.
Yeah, massively.
Especially in the UK, where we seem to have this habit of cramming every stage with about 10 to 12 acts, which is an annoyance at the best of times anyway, because it just leaves no space for anyone to do anything. But that's the thing, like that's where the idea of like a touring party being a household goes out the window, because if you've got 10 bands on the fucking main stage at Reading,
just doesn't
that's
work.
10 households. So you have to, at that point, you have to be wearing masks. I think Europe, it'd be more workable, because European festivals, like, for example, we did Ziggit in Budapest a couple of years ago.
Good festival.
The main stage there was four acts, and each act had about an hour and a half of a changeover. So it meant that in theory, you could work that where like you don't need to, because there only really need to be like 2 touring crews on that stage at one point. For example, your headliners come in, they set up and sound check in the morning, and then they bugger off. Because the changeover is that long, you've got 15 minutes to get, say, the band before you stuff off, an hour to get yours on. Like, yeah. Now we should be, because it would kind of be rotating in a sense, there shouldn't need to be any like crossover between, say, Blossom's crew and War on Drugs crew. I'm just referencing the lineup that we were doing, but you know what I mean? Like that would be workable, but the way that UK festivals, to me, this is when I go off on a tangent, but like UK festivals are so badly run. It's all about how many bands can you fit in a small area. Like, I love Transmit. It's an improvement from the final days of Tea in the Park, but
that backstage area is tiny though. Like that wee bit where they pile all the bands into.
Yeah, and it's just not. I remember the first time we did it, it was the day where Biffy were headlining with 1975 as special guest. Twin Atlantic, Two Door, there were us, but it was so crowded, like you couldn't move anything because of that. The amount of equipment and the amount of crew, it just doesn't work. Well, like I say, we did Zig It, and that was Gogol Bordello, Blossoms, War on Drugs and Arctic Monkeys, and we all had fucking enough room to swing a cat backstage.
It's a good lineup as
it
well.
Was fine. Yeah, it was brilliant. First time I'd ever seen War on Drugs as well. Brilliant as well. And Gogol Bordello I'd never seen before, but was very much a fan.
Yeah. Is this the first summer in a while you've not been doing festivals? When was the last time you had a summer where it was festival free?
It would have been 2015.
That's not too long ago.
Even then, I still went to festivals. I think that was that was my last Hunter summer, and did Leeds that year. I think it was 20. Yeah, it's like what was it? Metallica, maybe Foo Fighters.
Could have been.
I remember Metallica were playing. So it's a very different summer from the previous one. Probably the first summer that's not involved any festivals for me since 2009. No, 2008, because 2009 was my first.
I mean, this must be the longest time you've not been on the road in a while, I'd imagine, is it?
It probably is now, yeah.
Yeah. How long have you been off?
So. I think
2 months, maybe? 2 months has it been since it?
Just over two. Yeah, over 2 months now.
Man.
So, yeah.
Time is flying
2
past.
months in a weekend.
Yeah.
I'm taking a bit of comfort that through those 2 months actually have strangely flown in. And like the rest of the year can just hurry up. That'd be great.
Past,
I mean, this is I just don't know. Like, I bet me looks at it like, oh well, if there was a possibility of us going back to gigging in like January next year, it would mean I'd maybe still be doing prep. Like I'd be doing prep work end of November. It's a way of looking at that. Hopefully, it's like whenever the first few shows are meant to be.
It's a couple of months before that you can get into prep work and get going again.
Yeah, but just I don't know. I just have to wait. See, that's why I'm trying to sort of think up little plan B, so to speak. It could be argued, no one wants the guitars looked at because they're not gigging. But anyone that plays guitars because they're gigging, I mean, they play it because they enjoy it.
Yeah.
And as a guitarist, and if anything, you're probably playing a guitar more now than you were before lockdown. And there's a lot of, if people are wanting to do their sessions from home and record music from home, because I think that's maybe one like positive to all of this is that I think there will be a sort of a mass creative output at the end of this because
another creative renaissance.
Hold up in his I wanted to use the word renaissance, but I wasn't sure whether that sounded wanky. But you sounded fine with it.
I've gone for it. I've put my neck out.
So fair play. But yeah, I think like that's the thing. If you're recording from home, this is once again me promoting. Is like you want your equipment to be in top shape.
Yeah, definitely.
You
need it to be.
So it's one that I think goes hand in hand. I just have to wait and see. But
yeah, it's all the uncertainty. I don't know when.
I think. Well, I'd very much like to think there'd be some positives will come from this.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't really want it to be some sort of dystopian world that we all go back to. Like, I don't want it to be like I don't want it to be this sort of like stripped back way of living. Like, I don't want that to be permanent. I don't think anyone does. I think it may be. I think that, surely like when we speak about like the bloody dolphins in Venice and stuff like that, it shows like it doesn't take long for like the world to kind of like heal a little bit. And I'll be honest, I'm not someone that writes placards about the climate crisis. It's not something I've ever really thought about. Judge me that as much as you like. It's just not something that is. I'm just one of those people that it's just never. I've never sat and thought about it. When very much I should. I feel like this is kind of maybe shown that it doesn't take much for the world to kind of recover a little bit, and whether there are some lessons from that can be applied to our way of living going forward. But
even touring and stuff and making that a little bit more kind of climate friendly.
Yeah, I think that's probably if there's a positive impact that it can have on touring is maybe that it could give people time to suss out a way of touring that is environmentally friendly.
Yeah, I saw the 1975 were speaking about doing something with like a tent where you would use like sunlight or something.
Right, yeah. I'm not sure I feel that I read that.
Some crazy shit.
To me that's just Matt Healy being Matt Healy. Don't get me started on that. I mean, I've identified that climate crisis as a thing. I've just came out and said like a massive twat for saying that. But yeah, don't get me started on Matt Healy's
interesting opinions on some things.
Yeah, I'm not going to go on a rant now. Yeah.
But thank you very much for coming on tonight, man. I appreciate it. And I imagine
you're welcome.
We've kind of focused mostly on COVID on this one, but I imagine we'll probably do one once we're able to do a podcast like in person together, where we kind of talk about everything a bit more in general. And because we were going to do, and I was thinking about this before it started, it was pretty much when everything started kicking off, I was going to come over and we were going to do a podcast, and then
the day, I remember it was like, I think we were scheduling in on like the day I was coming home from tour.
I know, when actually it was,
I remember rightly,
19th of March it would have been, because it was the day before I was supposed to have 2 shows, and that's why I was supposed to come back up to Aberdeen, and then those shows both got pulled, and I didn't come back up. And everything just went mental from there, like everything kicked off. Yeah,
it is. It's just, it's insane how much things change. Like you even said, like, you listen to that podcast that I done at the start of lockdown, and how much it's changed since then, like how much my answers have changed, because it just shows that, it's just a situation that's grown arms and legs. Yeah, it's constantly evolving as well, and developing and changing and going in different directions. It's kind of even got to the point where like I've just kind of got used to it getting worse, so that even if someone does say it's getting better, I'm like, no. Like, no, it's not over, but I mean, I'd like to think, like you see the graphs are starting to come down. So
it's starting to get better.
Hold on, you just want them to keep coming down, and then we can go back to enjoying things.
How you doing, Chrissy?
Yeah, good, man. Bored, but it's just been a bit weird, stuck inside all the time and not really having any sense of normality. It's been quite challenging, but I suppose everybody's in the same boat, so.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it kind of felt like it started off as a bit of a politically troubled year, maybe, and it's kind of just, I don't know, it's kind of accelerated beyond what you thought it would have.
It's one of those things that you've never really, like, you see things like this in movies, and you don't really ever imagine it would be like a real life thing. And I think like there's moments when you sit and think about the kind of gravity of the situation, that the whole fucking world's in lockdown, and which is just really strange because it's so dystopian, and it's just a really weird thing. I think, like, obviously just try not to think about the severity of everything that's actually happening, but it's definitely weird.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing as well is it's weird because we're kind of still in the middle of it, and we don't really have like any perspective on it yet, and like we don't also know what's kind of coming over the horizon and what's going to happen as a result of it.
Yeah, I think it's just like with the music industry and stuff as well, it's just like, especially the kind of live sector, it's just totally floored it all. And again, it's like you go to shows and whatever, and you never really imagine not being able to do that. So it's quite like a kind of weird thing, I suppose. And I think like for artists as well, it's such a tough thing, especially for artists that were going to be releasing music or albums, and kind of having the live bit taken away from that and not being able to promote or maybe do like a proper campaign because you can't tour. It's just like tragic.
I was speaking with my pals that's in a band who had their debut album come out last month, I think, end of last month, and he was saying that the label like told them all the sales that they would have got had they gone out and done all the in-stores that were planned in this, and kind of everything that they'd lost from it. And it's just like mental, like how much it's kind of just taken away from you and out with your control.
Yeah, I think as well, it's just like, it's especially for kind of new artists that are maybe like have been working for like the last 6 months to kind of start releasing their first releases, and then like when you're trying to build a career for yourself, or you're putting music out for the first time, like you really rely on live to go and kind of play in front of people that haven't heard of you before, and to have that taken away from you is just a kind of challenge that nobody really knows how to combat. Or like, I think like the live stream gigs thing just isn't working. I don't think there's any appetite for people sitting watching people doing live streams anymore. I think it's just not done, and in terms of like trying to monetize it and sell tickets for live stream gigs, it's just a non-starter, because if I'm doing like paying for a live stream, I can just go on Zoom and share my screen, and 8 other people can watch it with me, and there's no way to kind of combat that. So and I also just think they're boring. Like I've got no interest in sitting watching live streams anymore. Like the first couple of ones, you were like, oh yeah, this is cool, and it's good that you're kind of able to still see live music if that's what it is. But I think it's kind of now at the point where you just kind of want to be back in the room with them, and I think that's going to be the challenge as well for when things start opening back up, of can you do gigs social distancing, and how does that work? And hopefully there's a way around it to to make it as real an experience as you can for both kind of punters and the artist.
Yeah. Have you kind of started looking at that in terms of how to carry out gigs social distancing? Is that something you've put in any thought into yet? Or
we've had like a few ideas. Like Live Nation announced, I think today, that they're going to be doing a drive-in tour, that DF are going to be doing the Scottish leg of that, which hopefully will be good. I think it's 300. You can get 300 cars in their own wee box, and announced like the Streets and the Snuts and a few other acts are confirmed for it. I think there's still a few more to be announced. So that will be interesting to see how that works. I think it gives people an opportunity to go and do something different rather than go for a walk around the block. Or hopefully that will be received quite well and can be the kind of beginning of live music coming back, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, there'll be a real appetite for it, I guess, when it does come back. Like we were saying kind of before we started this, how much, just a lot of live things we've kind of missing, like in terms of it's weird just having it completely taken away from you, which I guess, what is it, absence makes the heart grow fond is the kind of...
Yeah, I was talking to somebody yesterday who was, she was talking about all the gigs that she had that she was meant to be going to, and they've all just been cancelled or postponed, and how like heartbreaking it is. And like, I think like when you work in the live industry, you kind of forget like there are like people that have been like spent like their hard-earned cash to like go to a show that they're really looking forward to, and it just gets like stripped away and they can't do it anymore. And like I remember like being younger and being there, and like if I kind of think about like how excited I would have been if like my favourite band were going to be playing Glasgow, and then to have that kind of just like taken away would just be proper gutting. So
I guess at least it's happening to everyone instead of just one person, if you know what I mean. Like everyone's kind of in the experience together.
Yeah, totally. It's just it's such just a weird time that nobody really ever. I mean, I certainly didn't ever think would ever be a real thing. Just such like a weird thought that this is now, it became normality of the last 3 months of just being like stuck in your house and not being able to do anything.
Yeah, I remember like years ago, probably like 5-6 years ago, watching, I think was it Bill Gates did that TED talk, where he kind of spoke about the dangers of a pandemic and all the stuff it could pose. And I think I just presumed that there would have been a plan in place for when it eventually kind of happened, if you know what I mean. Like the government would have had some sort of idea of what to do, and it feels like there was just no real idea, and they were kind of just doing it off the cuff. And
I think politically, the UK have absolutely like fucked it. Like they've just like, the government haven't wrapped themselves in glory.
No,
I suppose, like without getting too deep into politics, it kind of just shows that how capitalism is just so broken and like doesn't work. Like everything that they've been doing to combat the virus is like socialist politics that everybody's been banging on that don't work. And like when it comes to something like this, it's they rely on like socialist concepts to kind of get them way out of it. And yeah, it's just like for me, like potentially this could spell the end of capitalism as we know it. I think that was me thinking with like a super optimistic outlook, which it probably won't, but it at least shouldn't. It should waken a lot of people up to like how the system and the capitalist system is so broken.
It almost feels like the culmination of quite a lot of years as well, in a kind of sense. Like basically the build up from. I mean, do you not think though? I guess with 2008 as well, though, you thought more people would have kind of, like 2008 happened, and then the Tories kind of got voted into power, which is a weird kind of juxtaposition, if you know what I mean. I guess because Labour were in power when it happened, but
I think that for like being in Scotland as well, like I don't know a single person that would vote for the Tories, and that, like I get that that's part of that is because of my social circles and the type of people that I surround myself with, but like it just doesn't make any sense for us to be governed by a government that nobody really wants. The whole political landscape is so depressing.
Do you think there's been enough support for music from the government in terms of what they've kind of done to help combat the massive issue facing it at the minute?
Nah, like I think that there's just been like a lack of communication, and I think that I get that nobody really knows when things are going to be back to normal, but naturally, like I've not really been involved in any chats with government or haven't been privy to what information has been shared, if any, but it definitely feels to me like especially the live music sector, which I suppose then has a greater impact on everything else, but like there's not been enough support. I think when you look at like the kind of other governments in Europe, they seem to have been a little bit more proactive in terms of like sharing dates or like giving glimmers of hope, but then also backing that up with financial support. That I think it was Germany announced there was like 150 million grant getting pummeled into the live entertainment industry, which is amazing. Which is like, if we could get something like that, it would definitely help, like in the short term, to try and, I suppose, get or prepare to kind of set up to getting back to shows or back to something. But there just seems to be, they're just, yeah, there's not been enough for me anyway. There's just not been enough support, both financially and not emotionally, because that's not the right word, but there's not been enough of a communication there.
Like keeping in the loop.
Totally, but which I you can understand, because I don't even think the politicians know. But it just seems from the outside looking in that there's, like, some of the European governments have definitely been like supporting the live entertainment industry a lot better than ours has.
Yeah.
And I suppose there's still time for that to change, and I get that the European cities and countries are a lot further on than we are, because they've generally just handled the whole pandemic a lot better. But
I guess it felt like at the start it was almost chaos. Like there wasn't a clear plan in terms of what was going on, and especially with music, I remember it felt like it came out of nowhere to a certain extent. I don't know if you were in the same position where it felt like it escalated rather rapidly and very quickly in terms of the severity of the situation.
I think there was so much ignorance, like, across the board, that, oh, this thing's happening in China, but it's in China. And then it was like, oh, it's happening in Italy, but it's fine, it's happening in Italy. Like, I remember like chatting to folk about when Italy were in lockdown and being like, "Aye, that's mental, that's never going to happen here." Like, and then 2 weeks later, bam. Which seems like that was about 3 years ago that I was having those chats. But it just shows that, like, the ignorance wasn't just from, it was from like the governments, but it was from the media, but it was from like everyone. Like, I definitely didn't foresee this happening, even though all the warning signs were there. I suppose it's just something that you don't think is like a real thing, because it seems like something out of a movie.
Yeah, I mean, I guess with what you do as a job as well, you're so focused on what's coming next and what's ahead that you kind of maybe don't always have time as well to kind of contemplate something of that severity kind of getting in the way.
Yeah, I mean, because like we kind of work 6 months in the future. Like, we are constantly, like, shows are happening, but we are working on the shows that are going to be in 6 months' time. So that's definitely been a bit weird, that now seeing like shows that were supposed to have happened having like moved to later in the year, but now then getting moved to next year, because still nobody knows whether or not there's going to be shows happening this year. I think that's maybe, like, again, maybe a slight bit of ignorance, that people just maybe assume that, oh, it'll be over by the summer, or it'll be over by the kind of early autumn. But it's like, it may well still be, but there's no like guarantees. That it kind of definitely seems now that, like, artists' teams are now just like writing this year off and focusing on 2021 and just doing everything that was planned for this year next year, and we just kind of set everybody back a year. But as you said, everyone's in the same position, so it's not as if anyone's getting like a leg up or anything.
I mean, I remember when it's like back in March, when everything kind of started getting postponed, everyone said, "Oh, shows will be back at the end of July," and then start of April it was September, and then start of May it was November, and it just seems to keep kind of getting further away. It's like no one really had a full idea.
Yeah, and I think that's still the case. Like, still nobody really knows. I think that people are maybe just, even if shows can happen toward the end of the year, I'm sure tours will get set up quite quickly, because there'll definitely be an appetite for people to go out to shows. But I think people are just kind of erring on the side of caution now and just moving everything to next year.
Yeah.
I still have like hints of optimism that hopefully, like, Tuts will be back open before the end of the year, which would be amazing. It would be great to get shows happening again and be back in the venue, but like, just nobody knows at the moment.
Yeah, I'm interested in, you always said you were at the Gala show on well, that would have been the day before lockdown kicked in, was that on the Sunday and then the Monday lockdown kicked in?
I don't think lockdown kicked in, I think it was like a week or two later, but certainly I was on the Sunday the 15th of March, I think it was the last show I was at, which was Gala's through in the Mash House, which that was kind of when the media in the UK and Scotland certainly started realising this was a real thing, and people were chatting, and like, you could kind of feel it at the show that there was definitely like a few people who hadn't gone to the show that bought tickets because they didn't want to be in a crowd or whatever. And I'd kind of seen it as, this is probably my last opportunity to go to a show for a while, so like, drove through to Edinburgh and went to it, and it was a really, really good show. But I think that even then, like, I probably in my head was thinking of kind of downtime, was like there'll be no shows for a month or two maybe, but I definitely didn't foresee it being as serious as it obviously has been. Yeah.
What was the atmosphere like at the show? Was there an area of like trepidation kind of kicking about, or do you think people were kind of aware of it?
Not really. Like, I think that like it definitely didn't feel like people were holding back and not like getting into it. And like gala shows are always like super high energy, and it was definitely the same. And maybe it felt like people had kind of were aware that it was maybe the last time they were going to get to do this for a while. So it didn't feel like people were holding back at all, which was obviously a good thing. Or maybe not, because there could have been people that were infected at the show, and maybe, but hopefully not.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird to think back to that kind of time of, I don't know if innocence is maybe the right word, but just to have such a
yeah, it's probably ignorance rather than innocence.
Yeah.
But, people just didn't foresee it maybe being as mad as it has been.
Yeah, I mean, how do we do implicated things for it, like earlier on, even if like say lockdown had come into being like a week earlier, things could have panned out quite differently. I mean, look at it, it's like kind of, is it New Zealand just declared themselves COVID free and kind of completely easing lockdown?
Yeah, I think that like it's definitely like they seem to have done a really, really good job of containing the virus and stopping the spread of infection, which like is to be commended definitely. But they've got quite a left wing government.
Maybe
Not that I'm
that's
saying it's all because of right wing. It's all because of right wing politics. But I definitely think that the outlook of erring on the side of socialism definitely has counted in their favour. Like seeing that they've had shows back opening, and but then on the flip side of that, I was in a Zoom call with an agent a couple of weeks ago who's out in LA at the moment, and he was kind of saying how like all the bars and stuff in LA are back open, but the infection rate's still so high there. But they're just like America are just totally fucking it as well. But like, I don't think they have gigs back, but they're still like folk gathering in masses and pubs, and which I think like everyone was kind of expecting yesterday that beer gardens were going to be back open with Nicola Sturgeon's announcement, which it's probably a good thing. Like I know a lot of people are really frustrated by it, but I think that when hospitality does open back up, like naturally, like because eating and drinking out of cups and plates and using cutlery and whatever, like that's how the infection can be spread super easily. So like that really should be the last thing that opens. But hopefully it won't be too far off. It'd be nice to go and get a nice big pint of Tennent's.
I know. Did yesterday's announcement have any implications upon the music industry and what you kind of do, or is it not too much?
Not really. Like I've been on furlough for a while, so like I'm not really in the loop with what the kind of company are doing and what implications what yesterday would have had. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't think it's really affected anything. Nicola Sturgeon did say was that they're still working towards tourism reopening on the 15th of July, I think it is. Yeah, so I mean, if tourism is going to be back open, then I suppose then you do need to have pubs and restaurants open. Whether that will be indoors, social distancing, or just outdoors, I think there's definitely an opportunity there's loads of really good outdoor spaces that potentially you could incorporate live music into, or hopefully you could incorporate live music into.
Yeah, I guess if you think about something like Galvanizer's Yard even, or something like that, like we've kind of got a stage and then you can have like a beer garden or something.
I don't know if they'll put a stage in, because the stage that you put in to do a show in there costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then naturally to cover that cost, you need to sell tickets and stuff. I think they'll probably just have DJs, and which is probably the right vibe for it. It's the other thing as well, that if people haven't been able to go to beer gardens or be outside with pals, like, do you really want to be sitting in a beer garden with some annoying acoustic guitar player in the corner, like making loads of noise when you're trying to catch up with your friends? Probably not right away. I think that in certain places it'll definitely that'll work. And yeah, like I think it's just trying to gauge what the appetite for a social distance outdoor concert is, and I think that we'll obviously see that with the drive-in shows, which hopefully will sell well, and the lineup looks really, really good for it. And I know there's still to be more stuff announced, so that's exciting to see how that all pans out.
Yeah. What do you miss most about live shows? I was going to ask.
Oh, That's a good question. I don't know. I suppose I just kind of miss the human interaction, maybe. Like I personally can see like being inside a music venue, having to be 2 meters away from anyone, and that being like an enjoyable experience. Like I think like if you want to go to a gig, you're going because you want to be around like-minded people and jump around and have a mad time, listen to like music that you love. And I suppose you kind of just miss the whole atmosphere of it, and like you miss seeing a band that you work with play an amazing show and like the crowd loving it and them loving it, and that's lovely. Like I miss like all the staff and venues that you know and that you see every day. And yeah, it's just I suppose it's just that kind of interaction with people that you're constantly around that's no longer there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess with yourself as well, going to shows every night, there's so many people that you just would bump into that you won't see now. Like just on the off chance.
Oh yeah, like I mean, like even like folk in the office that like you see every day, and like that's not just unique to music. That's like everything, like across the board. Like your colleagues that you're used to spending, you probably spend more time with your colleagues than you do with anyone else in your life, and just not seeing them at all is really strange. I think like all these kind of like Zoom meetings and Zoom catch ups and hangouts and whatever are just super weird as well. Like because it kind of feels like you are, and I think it's really weird how quickly it's became and felt so normal. We are super lucky to live in Glasgow and have like such an amazing music community and like so many amazing venues that are so close to each other that like you miss being in all the different venues. And yeah, it's just super weird. Like it's like it feels like I've not been at a gig in about a year. I know it's not been that long, but it definitely feels like it's been fucking ages.
It's a weird kind of contrast because it feels like time has been going really quickly for me during lockdown, but also when you think back to before lockdown, it feels
like I'd agree on that. Like it like I've played a sickening amount of Football Manager throughout lockdown, like an embarrassing amount actually. Like there's been days that I've literally woken up and just put it on and I've been still playing it like midnight. As much as like I've been loving that, I can't wait to not have to sit and play Football Manager all the time. I can't wait to have normality back and be able to be outside and going to shows and like hanging out with folk. And yeah, like I definitely hope that that's something that isn't too far off.
Yeah.
Even at a smaller scale, like I don't think the arena shows will be back. I think that they'll probably tailor like capacities and like the smaller shows will be back first, which hopefully means Tuts will be open when will be one of the first to open.
Yeah, well, I guess they'll probably do like 500 and under and then kind of go above that and just open it up gradually.
Yeah, I think that there's also like a bit of me is like, but does it really matter if you've got 500 people or 10,000 people in the room? If one person has the infection, then surely they can just spread it on. But
I guess it's less potential people to give it to.
Yeah,
depends what they do. They bring that app in or whatever. I guess if you bid it.
I know that there's definitely a lot of stuff that people are talking about, and like I was reading a thing a couple of weeks ago that Hamilton Accies Football Club are like the first club in the world to install like CCTV that have heat sensors. So like on the CCTV, they can tell people's body temperature.
There's something slightly terrifying about that as well, though. Like you were speaking about being dystopian.
Yeah. So like they can then spot if there's somebody in a crowd that is hotter than they should be, and they just don't get access into the ground. So that's pretty weird.
That sounds.
Which I suppose will become a thing. I don't know. Like I think it's just what new measures are going to now be normal. I suppose. Like I know that there's definitely like a feeling that there's going to be a total shift in across the board permanently of how things are and in terms of hygiene and things that will just become part and parcel of everyday life, like constantly washing your hands, potentially like wearing face masks in public might become a permanent thing.
Well, I mean, is it? I think it's one of the countries, and it might be. I think it is China that if they're sick, they just wear face masks anyway, like they've always done that, and it kind of makes sense. Like, why would you go out in public and spread something?
That the air's not very clean in China. I think there's like a lot of smog, so they tend to wear face masks for that. But I think that in general, like it is just part of their culture, and there's probably other countries other than China that do it, that they just constantly, they are maybe more aware of hygiene than we are. Like the amount of times, and I'm sure you'll be the same, that you're in a club or in a pub or at a show and folk go to the toilet and just walk straight back out without washing their hands. Like hopefully this is the end of that. I think they'll probably like hygiene stations on the way into the toilets and out of toilets, and they'll be monitoring the amount of people that are in toilets at the one time. as men, we've had the privilege of never having to really queue for a toilet. Whereas, like, if you're at a show or at a festival, there's always a massive line for female toilets and not for male. I think that's probably going to change, and there'll be a queue for us as well. Because I think that they are just going to monitor the amount of people that are going to be going in and out of kind of dangerous spaces like that. But I think that can all be a good thing, because like if people are going to be cleaner, then that's, and stop spreading germs as much, then that's a good thing, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, it'll probably have, outside of this pandemic, it'll have positive effects across the board, I'd imagine. You mentioned as well, like, the kind of musical community at the minute in Scotland. I was interested because as someone who's only really been involved in the scene like maybe a year and a half, or maybe even probably less time than that, you've kind of spoken about how before in interviews about how 4 years ago it wasn't that way. Like, it was a bit different in terms of the communal kind of vibe of it, and everyone, you know, kind of being very supportive of each other. What is it that's kind of shifted so that it's led to this kind of atmosphere and led to the creation of it?
I think there's just been a lot, like, we're going through like a total purple patch just now, that there's so many great bands are all coming out at the same time, and they're all friends and want to give each other a leg up. And there just seems, I think that it's maybe just more that there's more bands coming out just now that are of a higher quality, and because of that, it's the same people that would have been there before, but it's just that there's more of a spotlight on it because the music's a lot better. I definitely think that there's like places like the Priory, and there's like a massive community that's grown out of there, with like a lot of bands that kind of hang out there and drink together and start bands together and see other bands playing in there and go, oh, we can do that as well, so we're going to start a band now. And yeah, I think it's maybe like to do with social media as well, that the internet in general, that everything's became so much more available straight away, that maybe starting a band and putting music out has seemed like an easier thing to do now, and to like reach a wider audience is maybe seemed like less of a daunting thing to do. And I think like when you're starting to go to shows and you see bands from your home city starting to do really well and go on tour and release singles and getting loads of like support from like Spotify and Apple Music, and I think you naturally go, oh, that's amazing, I really want to do that. And I remember like when I was kind of 15, 16 and starting to go to shows and starting bands with like pals at school, it definitely didn't feel like that was a thing. But that was like 11, 12 years ago.
That's still quite a rapid change though.
Yeah, it definitely feels like there's a stronger music scene, I suppose. There's the quality of music coming out now. Like before, when I was kind of starting to go to gigs, the kind of bands that were coming out of Glasgow that were starting to get a bit of traction was like kind of Frightened Rabbit and Twin Atlantic, and who've kind of gone on and they've kind of pushed through that local band ceiling, and they've like done huge academy shows, and Twin Atlantic have done Hydros, and I think there was maybe like less, whereas now there seems to be a bigger pool of bands that aren't quite at that level yet, but they definitely seem to be going toward there, which is like super exciting. Like I think you look at Lewis Capaldi, who like 3 years ago was like playing in Tuts to 10 people, and now he's like going to be headlining Transmit, which is just amazing.
I mean, look at someone, for example, at the moment like the Snuts, who have kind of just been on a consistent.
And like the Snuts as well, like they're like on the same trajectory as Capaldi, like they're both from the same tiny town, which is just mental. And like Lupa Volpe's the same. Like there's like so many amazing artists coming out of Bathgate and Whitburn, which is just like, it seems like this like wee place off the map that nobody's heard of. But
I mean, I guess it comes back to what you're saying though, about one band spurring another one on and inspiring others and making them feel like it's possible.
Oh yeah, totally. And there's definitely that. Like they're all pals and they all went to school together, and which is amazing to see. But yeah, I think as well, like first when there's kind of bigger Scottish bands and there's like stuff coming up, like there seems to be more of an appetite now to try and give them like a leg up and like, oh, come and support me on my, like if they're doing like a show at something like SWG3 or ABC when ABC was still there, like they would get like one of like the smaller Glasgow bands to come in, or Scottish bands to come and support them and give them that kind of opportunity to play in front of a bigger crowd. That the Snuts definitely like benefited from that, like doing early support shows, like when they were first coming up, like The View, and they'd supported Lewis Capaldi and
Sherlock's as well. That was another one.
Yeah, Sherlock's, and they've definitely embraced that as well, which is like an amazing thing that the Snuts do when they play shows. Is they always want to know, or like they're super on it and they know who all the new cool Scottish bands are, or who the music that they like, and they always want to try and help and give those bands a leg up because they appreciate that they were given that opportunity as well, which is really, really great. And hopefully that keeps on going, that artists want to keep supporting the new stuff that's coming up around them.
Yeah. I mean, how does that work for yourself in terms of keeping on top of all the new music that's coming out and staying very like aware of the scene and what's interesting and what's going on?
I suppose like I kind of just do my best to know about everything. Like if people ask me that quite a lot, like, oh, how do you find new stuff? And I don't really know what the answer to that is. I suppose like I just constantly scroll through like Facebook and Instagram and Spotify and like all these online platforms that kind of give you an opportunity to kind of see who likes who and similar artists or whatever. That's been one thing that, because like usually I would go to shows and I'd maybe go to like a local show in the 13th Note or something, and there would be like a band supporting the band I was there to see that I hadn't heard of, and then I'd be like, well, there's another one, but I've not been able to do that just now. I've definitely been scouring the internet for new stuff, which I've still been finding a lot of new Scottish stuff, which is exciting, that there does still seem to be people releasing music. And
I guess as well, you seem to have quite a good awareness of kind of where everyone's at in their trajectory as well, and where they kind of are in terms of getting them on bills and stuff, which is quite a
I think there's definitely like an awareness of where people are at or where bands are at, and trying to make sure that you offer them the right plays at the right time that are going to benefit them, and not giving them maybe a big show supporting somebody at SWG3 before they're ready for it, because if they go and have a shit show, it might put them off wanting to do it.
Yeah.
Whereas if they do it at the right time, they can really use it as a stepping stone to kind of come away from that show with new fans, and hopefully then he'll be doing SWG3 in a year's time or whatever.
I feel like that's I feel like at the moment, with it being a very troubled kind of political time, we started off on maybe slightly downbeat note, but we kind of managed to get to a point there at the end where it's very positive and got a nice kind of way to wrap it up on. But yeah, cheers, man. I appreciate you coming on and giving me time to chat to you this morning.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Joe, how are you? How are you getting on? How's things?
I'm good. I'm not bad. How are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Whereabout are you at the minute? Whereabout have you retreated to for lockdown and everything that's going on?
I'm in Fife at the moment. Usually I'm always in Fife. Not much happens there, so lockdown didn't really make much of a difference. Just kind of felt the same. But with the restrictions not getting lifted a wee bit, I've been able to go back up to the office in Perth, so that's always a bonus. Get out of the house.
What were your kind of plans like at the start of the year before this all kicked off and before COVID got in the way, pre-lockdown?
I hadn't kind of planned too far ahead, to be honest. So at the end of 2019, I had just gone self-employed. So my kind of aim this year was just to get that set up and find my feet with that and kind of see where it goes. But I definitely had a lot more festivals planned, a lot more events, a lot of my work involves events. And obviously that's just completely gone. We don't know when that's going to come back. The events industry is going to be a weird one for a while.
Yeah,
really weird.
It's going to be strange when it does come back and what that's going to kind of look like. Like you're seeing all these driving gigs and stuff kind of emerging at the minute and all these new ideas.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I like the sound of a drive-in gig. I get the point of it, but I feel like the atmosphere of being in a crowd, that can't be replaced through sitting in your car. It just can't.
Yeah, I don't know. I was trying to think. I feel like it would maybe work a bit better for some bands than others. Not so much. It's at least folk are kind of trying to come up with ideas and stuff and be a bit creative about it. But yeah, it's going to be weird. Like we were doing one the other week, and I was speaking about. I just don't know how you would socially distance a gig. Like, I don't know how that would work.
Not at all. Well, most of my work's obviously in like clubbing, and that I don't see that ever working socially distant. I was
going to say, you see the thing on Facebook with the like the Zarb balls like in a club in Berlin or something?
Yeah, I've seen some really weird things come up. Have you seen what's like those like swimming pool woggles attached to people's heads to keep the 2 meters? So if your woggle hits somebody, you know that you're too close or something. It's bizarre. Or they had like little taped out squares that you could stand in and you just had to dance within your square.
Doesn't sound...
I don't fancy doing that.
No. Yeah, it's going to be... I feel like everything's kind of next year now, isn't it? Everything's been pushed back for a while.
Definitely.
How do you keep energized when everything's so far away? Like, and kind of motivated when it feels so far in the distance again?
I don't know. I guess you just kind of have to be grateful for the work you have at the moment. And it's a great opportunity to get planning and thinking ahead. Usually, like, especially if you're hosting your own event, you're always going to be thinking, it ends up being quite rushed, but now you've got plenty of time to think it through, get planning ahead for next year. So it'll be really interesting to see how some of the festivals adapt and what new ideas they come up with.
Yeah, I guess it gives you a little bit of time to kind of reflect as well, doesn't it? And kind of.
Yeah, definitely.
How does this year compare? Like, what were you doing this time last year compared to now?
I was on Ibiza this time last year. I lived there for about 5 months, doing my dream job. It was a very different place this time last year. I was a clubs writer intern for Ibiza Spotlight. So I basically got paid to just like go out, check out the parties, review them the next day, have the odd free drink, well I say odd, but a good few free drinks here and there. I go out on like day trips and some really cool stuff. So yeah, life was very different a year ago.
What motivated the decision to kind of go self-employed at the end of, you said the end of last year, like December time?
Yeah, it was kind of December, November, I think it was. It was something I'd never planned to do, to be honest with you. Like, it was never really a goal or even a consideration. But I just felt like I had loads of little avenues. So I was doing like writing and club stuff, and then I'd been training in like social media and copywriting, and then I was like, oh, but I quite want maybe do an event now and again. So it kind of felt like a good way to just kind of put it all under one hat and have it all in one place. And it was like, this is me, this is what I can do, hire me or don't. So but it's interesting. It's really funny. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it gives you a bit more freedom as well in terms of you can become more like flexible in terms of what you want to do, and you can maybe change it a bit easier and kind of evolve.
Yeah, definitely. Because the stuff that I do, like, it can be different, like social media and that, but it also does link quite well with the writing and like the copywriting and like SEO can understand, and it weirdly does relate. But you can be working with totally different clients at the same time, and I think that's something that during the pandemic especially has been hugely helpful, because I've been able to kind of keep working with it while music has slowed down. I've got clients in other areas that I can keep ticking along with. So I've been really grateful in that sense, really lucky.
What else that you do? Writing, like kind of reviews and stuff and that sort of thing? What other sort of freelance stuff do you get up to?
So I work with Highbeat Digital, who are a Perth-based digital marketing company. And I trained with them doing social media and copywriting, which is kind of just essentially blogs, but for selling stuff. Selling without realising you're selling. And I still work with them and do a lot of their client work with social media and copywriting again as well. We do the odd bit of PR as well. And obviously I offer those services out myself just directly. So if folk want wee bits of social media content or like a regular kind of manager, there's the options there. And then other than that, it's mostly kind of clubs and music writing.
So when I was doing the research for this, the amount of different like publications and websites and stuff that you've written for, do you have like regular ones that you kind of tend to go back to, or is it just kind of freelance all the time and constantly changing and constantly?
Yeah, I guess to be honest, when I started writing, this was like a few years ago, and most of them weren't really clients. They were just kind of blogs you done for like a hobby and to kind of just get involved and get practicing and learning. But I don't know, I just kind of take it up as opportunities come. You know, some people just want you to write one piece and then go, but some places you can get a lot more regular content and build a bit more of a relationship with. But it's really interesting, to be honest. And when I was in Ibiza, that was like employment, so I wasn't working with other publications at that time. But yeah, it's quite interesting. It's really interesting what you can do from Scotland. You know, I've worked with a lot of blogs and places that I'm not even in. I've written for loads of clubs. I've written for a club in London and never actually been there. So it's quite interesting what you can do when you go freelance.
I guess that kind of helps as well when it comes to COVID and stuff, in terms of looking at operating within that world, but not having to necessarily be doing that face-to-face contact and seeing people in person.
Totally. And the thing with the Scottish kind of side of things is, we've got like a brilliant scene going on, but it is, compared to a lot of places, it is small and it is highly competitive. It's so competitive, and it's a lot more DIY rather than kind of the major companies. And the major companies are where your most employment's going to kind of opportunities will be. So I think in Scotland you do have to be able to diversify a wee bit, and it's really helpful to be able to go freelance and still be able to help your local scene, but also be able to support yourself by maybe working with companies out with Scotland. And
in terms of writing for the different publications and websites and stuff, do you notice it's quite a different process when it comes to each one, or does everyone kind of handle it in a similar way?
Yeah, it is definitely different, I would say. Some people, depending on some people can be quite laid back, or some people have quite like a strict sort of editorial style that they want to stick to. So yeah, it just kind of varies. You notice more of a difference when you're talking about blogs and publications, like magazines and these sort of higher publications. They will have a lot stricter kind of style of writing, and blogs are a lot more kind of creative freedom. But then as well, I write for places where it's like a business and the blog is just an asset to their website. That's really promotional stuff. You're really promoting that person's event or what they're up to. So yeah, you do kind of see a difference coming up.
I guess it can help them somewhat with some like diversifying skills that you kind of have to adapt a bit more, and you have to change your style, and you become you become multifaceted as a writer a bit more, I suppose.
Totally. And I think doing the copywriting has really helped that, because, you know, the clients you're working for, they're not like, when I work through Hype Digital, they're really creative businesses, but they're not necessarily music. So I could be writing about like botanical spirits one day, or I could be writing about like cooking recipes for a client. You know what I mean? It really varies. So that definitely helped. I think when it actually came back to music stuff, I got a lot more transferable skills out of it.
Do you have like a structure that you'll tend to go for, and do you have like kind of things that you're mentally taking off in your head in terms of what you want to achieve when you're writing an article and the kind of information you need to convey across, or how does it kind of work, that structure of it?
It kind of depends. I've kind of like in the past year been having more fun playing with structures. So you find that you want to get a really catchy title, and the way I think a lot of things that I've noticed have worked well with that is doing maybe like top 10 this and top 5 that, and getting really kind of catchy headlines. So yeah, I think you need to make content has to be really digestible. People don't have attention spans anymore. You know, they're a lot lower, so you want to really break up the content, make it really easy to read, put lots of nice cool images in, make it really conversational and friendly. You know, nobody wants to read like a really boring essay, but it's mostly just depends on the event, depends what you're doing, and just the publication as well, what their style is.
I remember when I was messaging you about this, it was the ghost quote feature that I read that you did. So cover feature, what was it, a couple of weeks back, last week?
I think it came out last week, I'm not sure. I should know.
As someone who does interviews as well, I'm quite interested by the kind of process you have of preparing for that, and the kind of the construction of the questions and the interview itself. How does the research process sort of begin for you when you're kind of approaching something like that?
So I guess it starts with a conversation with the editor. So the editor for Snack Magazine, which that publication went out on, came to me and kind of we had a wee conversation about, you know, what's he been up to recently. So Ghost Poet's biggest thing was that he'd had an album come out, so you obviously want to focus a lot on the album, and then you want to just relate it to what's going on at the time, you know. So we discussed a lot of topics. We discussed lockdown and the pressures from that. We discussed kind of social media influences, and we discussed Black Lives Matters. We just kind of whatever's going on at the moment, and you kind of want to build a structure. We made a few points you really want to go with, maybe a few nice questions in your head, but you just kind of have to roll with it in the moment, which is kind of scary because there's only so much you can prepare for. But you just kind of have to play off what they say, see where they go, and kind of just take it from there when you're in the actual conversation.
What's your mindset like when you're in that conversation, and if you've got that slight pressure of knowing that you kind of need to have that next question ready to go and you kind of need to keep it flowing?
For that one, I was actually really nervous because I haven't done it. Just the way things have worked out, I'd not done like artist interviews in a long time. So I was really nervous for that one. So I was just sitting there thinking, oh my God, I hope he doesn't fucking hate me. I was like, I was like, don't say anything bad to me, but to the end, and I was like, please. I got really nervous for that one, which was strange. But I don't know, you just kind of think, as long as I know I've covered my few main points, and anything else that comes along is just maybe reflecting on where he's at, what he's talking about, and him as a person. And you still want that content. You don't want to just come in and get all the kind of main basic points. You want to flesh it out a bit and just kind of get into his personality a wee bit. So I guess I'm just thinking, I hope I've got enough. Hope I've got enough for an article.
I guess that can be the challenge as well, try to get their personality out and get them to kind of be open and honest in an interview. Because I mean, I guess sometimes you find that artists are kind of going in with a certain mindset, if you know what I mean. In terms of it's thinking of an interview, they can be a wee bit closed off, and it's kind of try to relax them a wee bit, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess it depends. Some artists see interviews differently. Some like hate them. Some will just kind of see it as like a chore, and some will really love it. They'll love the chance to talk about their music and talk about their work. So I guess you can tell the difference. You can tell when you're getting a one-word answer or when you're getting like a really in-depth, really good conversation going.
I think as well, were we both at Discovery at the same time, kind of around the same time? Did you, yeah, was that kind of where you cut your chops working on interviews and kind of refining that skill and talking to artists?
Yeah, I actually started out when I was at college, and I had to do like a survey, and I got chatting to these guys who were doing a promotions group, and that was called ATM Music, and they were like, oh, we'd like to get you involved. Would you fancy starting up a blog for us? Because we've got all these cool bands coming to play with us. It'd be good to maybe get some interviews from them. So that was actually how I started. My first ever artist interview was the Rokes, the Dundee band.
Very good band. I saw them live.
I know.
Sneaky Pete's the headline Sneakies back in February. It was a really good show. Maybe start of March actually. It was right before lockdown.
Oh, you must have got a last gig in. Nah, they were really cool boys, but they were the first people I interviewed. So it just kind of started from ATM, and then from ATM I got into Discovery Music. And Discovery Music was great to be creative, and I had lots of freedom in that sense. And to kind of just explore things, try things out, make connections. But if I have to say where I really honed my skills, it would probably be at Spotlight last year, because I was working under like a much tighter editorial, if you know what I mean. People had to tell me where I was going wrong, what I was doing wrong, and I felt a lot of progress coming from that. Progress? I don't know how you say it.
Yeah, just kind of getting that constructive criticism and kind of people being open to kind of show you where you can kind of improve upon your skills. What sort of stuff did you learn when you were there then? What were the kind of main things that you took from it?
I guess they showed me how to streamline a little bit, because the difference between blogs and publications, blogs really want that personal touch. They really want to talk about exactly how you're feeling and your connections. It's a bit more fun, you swear in them. Whereas it taught me how, being with Spotlight definitely taught me how to adapt to writing for maybe a more kind of stricter publication, somewhere that, stricter is maybe the wrong word, but somewhere that's maybe comes across a bit more professional. They're doing it to promote, they're doing it for these big events. So it definitely helped me to kind of maybe be a bit more professional, if that's the right word. And just general bits and bobs that I kind of picked up, things about structuring, things about how the importance of that first, your first intro, your first few lines, making sure to include certain things, and just really lots of little bits and bobs that just helped me to streamline what I was doing.
I mean, we've spoken quite a bit about the freelance side. How has COVID affected that kind of area of work? Are you still able to kind of do the same sort of things, or is it still quite
because I've been spread out over kind of two kind of industries, so the social media side of things, I've been really lucky to continue to work, and I have High Beat Digital to thank for that, because that's where a lot of my work in that area does come from. But I think, maybe in the first couple of months I wasn't doing as much kind of writing and things like this, but it gave me a good time to just kind of get a bit more of a plan together. I launched a wee kind of Instagram page to get things going, just kind of getting a wee bit of structure, how I want to do things, where I want to go. So I don't see it as much of a loss, and that's okay. Maybe I didn't make the money in those months, but I got such a good plan and I got such a good kind of time to reflect, and that's so valuable. So hopefully it pays off in the next few months.
You furthered that foundation as well, kind of as a freelancer, and kind of established yourself a bit more.
Yeah, because nobody knew I went freelance. It was just a really quick kind of thing. It just happened, and I was just kind of trying to learn as I go. So it kind of gave me a good time to actually put word out there and be like, by the way, I do this.
So how does that work for kind of like government support and stuff? Has that affected you, or is that not something that...
I could, there was government support for freelancers, and I didn't take it because I was still able to earn, and I just didn't really feel, I was like, there are people there who have gone to zero and they probably need it a lot more. I was like, I can still survive. I don't know. I didn't feel kind of right taking that. But there is supports out there. The support is very iffy, and it's still being talked about. And we see a lot on Twitter about the freelance PEs who kind of on contracts. They've not been supported at all. And I think a lot of small business owners who they live off their dividends. I think there's a lot of kind of blurred lines there still, which is quite bad considering we're now almost out of lockdown. You'd think that they would have been addressed.
Yeah, it's been going on, 3 months? When was it? End of March it kind of started the support, and they've still not really sorted that. Some stuff out.
Yeah.
A bit frustrating. How does that work as well for the Velvet Lounge in the studio that you... So you run the studio with a couple other people? Yeah,
so it's myself and Holly Irvin, who is actually from Perth, which does help. I'm not from Perth. And Fiona, who was a founding member of the studio. We came on board to kind of help out, and we own it, we manage it. We've got some really cool producers in there. It's a really interesting wee space, because it's actually not even, it wasn't made to be a studio. It's in the Ice Factory, which is a nightclub. And it was originally a bar. So it has this big balcony outside looking over the park, and it's just such a bizarre space, but it's brilliant. It's amazing. We were lucky. We have had some support, which we wouldn't have made our rent and things if we hadn't had that support. So we have been really lucky in that sense, but as well, because recordings, obviously, you don't require lots of people. We're not in the same situation as events. We can open up this year. We know that. We're not going to have to wait until next year like a lot of festivals and things. So we're getting there. We've made it through. So I'm really pleased with that.
When is it looking? Do you know roughly when it'll open back up, or is it still quite tough to tell with the kind of current situation?
We're in discussions. And we'll be getting a date, and it'll probably be getting announced next week when we'll be reopening.
I like the idea of what you're saying there about how it's a converted bar. I love it when you go into studios and stuff that have been different things before, and there's a really cool kind of vibe to them that's a bit different in it. It adds something to it, I think, almost as well when bands are going in there.
It's a really quirky wee space. I've never seen anything like that, to be honest. So that's why I was like, I need to get involved with this.
When did the studio What all does the studio do? So it does recording, does it also do practicing and stuff? What all kind of sort of stuff do you cover?
Yeah, so you can do rehearsals in there, and we've also, so it's always ran in the studio and kind of rehearsal room. However, when we came in and we saw the space, we were like, oh my gosh, like this could be such a, you could have this event, you could have this workshop, you could do this. So we're also calling it a creative lounge. That's our kind of 3 things that we were going to do. And we've had one trial workshop and it went really well, but we just see the potential of the space in a lot more. So we'd like to see some other kind of creative things going on there maybe in the future, you know, stuff like maybe like poetry nights, maybe really intimate gigs, photo shoot venue. It'd be brilliant for that. So we're going to try and start pushing that over maybe the next few months.
It'd be cool as well with Perth. There's a few, you know, kind of good bands coming out of Perth at the minute. That'd be cool to kind of trying to help, you know, nurture that scene and kind of keep that. It could almost be, you could see it as like a creative type hub, couldn't you?
Yeah, and you've got Perth, is it University of the Highlands and Islands? I think that's in Perth, and they've got a lot of music courses. They do music business. They've got a lot of production. They've got a few bits and bobs going on up there. So yeah, there's definitely kind of a market for it.
Will COVID have a lasting impact upon the studio, do you feel?
I guess in a way. No, we have been very lucky and we managed to kind of keep afloat. But I think it's had a very positive impact in that for myself and Holly, it's a side hustle, you know? It's something that it's like a project on the side. It's a really passion-driven thing. So to have this kind of extra time through lockdown, we've managed to get so much work done for it. We've managed to get so much planning in. We've got some really exciting things coming out in the next few weeks. And it's kind of just, again, giving us that time that we needed to do it and that time to just really get a head start. So it's been really valuable in that sense. And that will have an impact on the studio going ahead for sure.
Yeah, kind of similar to freelancing where you've kind of put the foundations down and you can kind of then build upon it once everything gets going again.
Even simple stuff. We've been in there like painting, cleaning, getting all that sort of stuff done.
What sort of other positives do you think could come from COVID to try and get a silver lining from a kind of horrible dark cloud? What other positives do you think could be taken from the current situation going forward for yourself and the kind of industry at large?
It'll definitely kind of push innovation and creativity, and that's it. People have had to adapt and do things they wouldn't have necessarily done. I'd like to see a new value on creative industries, you know, because I imagine a lot of businesses have relied on creative minds to help them adapt. So hopefully there'll be a kind of new value in that. I think there'll be a massive new value in creative digital work as well, because a lot of things have had to go digital, have had to go online, social media and this sort of thing. And they'll have realised that it's not necessarily as easy as they thought, you know. The graphic design, the website design, all this sort of stuff is really valuable work that has kind of in the past been dismissed a wee bit. So hopefully going forward, that's again got more emphasis. Musically, it's a funny one. I guess just more appreciation, you know, more appreciation for the events that are going on, more appreciation for local scene. But it's kind of hard to tell at the moment. We just have to see how things go.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it can come back strong, and you can kind of, once you get that bit of momentum going, people realise they've kind of missed that that thing about
there'll be a lot of good recordings.
Yeah,
people have been writing like crazy.
It was really nice at the start of lockdown how we kind of had all that music coming out, but then you have kind of noticed now as the studios haven't been open for a few months, it's but yeah, it's going to be good.
I'd like to see some people try and there'll probably be people who've picked up an instrument that they've never picked up before, or tried to DJ and they've never done it before, just because they've got the time. So there could be a lot of new artists coming in as well, which would be really nice to see. Yeah.
Have there been any new skills like for yourself that you've kind of picked up and tried to refine a wee bit more over outside the kind of things we've discussed?
I've been trying to learn website design stuff, and I want to build my own website. It's in the running. And I sat down at lockdown and I was like, I could do this in like a week. I'll take a course, I'll do it. And oh my God, it's so hard. Like, I really have so much respect for people that build websites. So I've got a new setup where basically I've been kind of training with someone. I just learned better that way, but self-teaching really technical stuff was not for me. So hopefully it's something I'd like to include eventually.
Yeah. Are you quite a collaborative person in terms of when you're working on projects, do you like to kind of have someone else to bounce ideas off of and stuff and that sort of thing?
Totally. Definitely. I love to collaborate. I love to see how, you know, if you'd always working on your own ideas, it'll only ever kind of peak. It'll only ever go one direction and that's it. So I think it's so important to be collaborating with people, especially right now. You know, creatives should be coming together, should be thinking of ways they can like help each other out of this. And hopefully that is another positive that comes from lockdown. You know, people are collaborating and new ideas and new things are going to appear.
Yeah, and then when it kind of comes back, the bonds kind of get solidified in terms of being creative, and then those people kind of form partnerships, might everyone continue working and going forward. But yeah, I feel like that's quite a positive note to end. To wrap up on. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
That's all right. Thank you for having me.
A good chat.